This storm has caused confusion and delay.
You have caused
Confusion and delay.
That is the pure face prejudice.
Daisy is just the ultimate thought. Daisy is just the ultimate thought.
Your impatience has caused confusion and delay. This storm has caused confusion and delay. You are causing confusion and delay. You have caused confusion and delay.
26 years old and you can't even drive? I can. Are you stupid, eh? Are you a stupid fool? Well, why can't you drive then? You can't even drive! Bit grey today.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another Deepest Law. Now, last week I did a special stream on the Kinks called The Kinks as a Reactionary Band, and it had a pretty positive response. But one of the things that I did on that stream, one of the things I assumed going into that stream, is that everybody would basically kind of know who the Kinks were and have an idea of like some of their big hits and so on. Of course, I forgot that this is 2023 and nobody knows anything. And so a lot of people were like, oh, this is a great band, but I've never heard them before. So in a strange way, I did a more advanced stream. You know, I kind of, I overestimated the level of the audience, if that makes any sense. So there's been quite a lot of demand for a more kind of general introduction to the Kinks. And in this stream, I'm going to be providing that. It's going to be divided into two halves, and I'm going to tell you about that in a moment. But before we get going, I have to remind people that The Prophets of Doom, my new book, is available. Buy it now. I'll just play a brief part of the promo for it. So yes, by Prophets of Doom. Also, currently, there is my Indian summer sale for all of the courses at the academic agency. Use the promo code MATE. That's MATE with 3 A's. And I won't play the promo. And with that out of the way, I'm gonna get going then. So yeah, if you haven't seen the previous stream, I would actually watch all of this stream and then go back and watch that one. You know, they're kind of a little bit out of order. If you have watched it, settle in. I hope this will be you know, just as good as that stream, if not better. So in terms of the structure, I'm going to be giving a kind of general overview, general introduction here. Should take about 30 minutes of me talking. Then I've got a little section called Getting to Know Ray and Dave, where I'm going to play about half an hour of interview clips, starting right back in the mid-60s, going all the way until their breakup in 1993, 1994. And there's some fascinating material in there, which we're going to watch together. And then in the second hour, I'm going to be playing some of the key songs, providing analysis, going through the albums. And, you know, maybe if we're lucky at the end, I'll give you a kind of my own kind of personal rankings. One thing I'm not going to be doing on this stream is I'm not going to be talking about their kind of very, very best known songs, and I'll tell you what those are in a second. First, though, if you're a brand new newbie, the best way to get into the Kinks, I would say, is to listen to their singles. Right, they have one of the best outputs of hit singles of any group, basically. You know, I would put them up there with you know, the Beatles singles, or I mean, there's not too many bands with a kind of singles collection as good. And the standard one out there, the one I think that you'll find on all the streaming sites and so on, is called The Ultimate Collection by the Kinks, which has got 2 discs. The first disc just collects all of the hit single, like 25 of them, and the second disc is more kind of B-sides and, a few also ran hits and things like that. It's a pretty good collection. The one that I had when I was a teenager was this one, the singles collection, which has got this amazing second disc called "The Songs of Ray Davies," the songs of Ray Davis, Waterloo Sunset. I'm not sure if that's available anymore, if it's easy to get hold of, but I just thought it'd be, this is how I got to know the Kinks, was through that best of. And then I started digging into the albums because in the 60s, a lot of hit singles were not on albums. And the albums kind of stood on their own and the singles stood on their own. And there's a lot of kind of baffling moments where you're like, oh, well, how come Days isn't on that album? And how come, a lot of their best known songs just weren't on any albums? And likewise, a lot of the album material, which is, they've got some brilliant songs and albums, were never well known to the general public because they were just kind of album tracks. So kind of swings both ways. The Kinks, I would say, are there were some acts who were good at singles, there were some acts who were good at albums. The Kinks, I would say, were masters of both. They were masters of the 3-minute single, but they were also masters of the album and also of the concept album, which we'll get onto later on. The best available best of out there that I could find is this. It came out in the Netherlands. It's called Kinks Collected Complete History. That has got basically every single single they ever released, with a third disc of B-sides and rarities. And pretty much, if you want a one-stop shop, all of their big hits in one place, and all of the it's all there on that. I don't know if Spotify or any of the streaming sites has it, but what I thought you could do is you can just have you could pause the screen here on the back, and you could easily recreate that using Spotify or whatever else if it's not on there. I don't use Spotify, so I don't know. I have something called Amazon Music, and I pay a sub to that, but that didn't have it. That doesn't have this. And I mean, in terms of the hyper-canonical hits, so there are basically 7 songs which are so well known and so famous that I would describe them as hyper-canonical, right? If a text is canonical, that means it has entered the kind of the mainstream culture or the popular culture in a way, or the kind of it's stuff everybody knows, right? Like, I don't know, Hamlet by Shakespeare is a hyper canonical text. People are made to study it in school, stuff like that. And in terms of the Kinks, when they burst onto the scene, they had a number 1 hit called "You Really Got Me," which if you don't know it, you've probably heard it at some point, either on the radio or on an advert, or there's almost no way that anybody watching this has never heard "You Really Got Me." Okay, so I'm not going to be talking about that. Also, another big hit they had was "All of the Day and All of the Night." I'm not going to be talking about that either. That's their other kind of very big early hit, like 1964. Another hyper-canonical song of theirs is "Sunny Afternoon." Really famous track, played on the radio all the time. It's anthemic. I mean, these are songs that everybody knows, like your mother, your uncle, everybody knows "Sunny Afternoon," will have heard it, etc. If you don't, if you somehow have lived all your life and you've never heard "You Really Got Me," "All the Day and All the Night," "Sunny Afternoon," you should go and listen to those songs, ASAP, because they are some of the Kinks' best known stuff. Another song which is hypercanonical by the Kinks is Waterloo Sunset, arguably the most beautiful song ever written in the English language in terms of pop songs. It's frequently described as one of the best songs ever written, and certainly it's a beautiful. I mean, I consider it. It's just it's a level of kind of it almost sits at a level above a lot of other things. There's only a handful of songs in this sort of category. I'm trying to think of an example of what else is up there with Waterloo Sunset in that sort of way. Um, I mean, you'll have to come up with your own examples, but something like "Yesterday" by the Beatles or something like that. It kind of it exists at another level. So I'm not going to be talking about Waterloo Sunset. Brilliant song though it is. Another one that I consider to be hyper canonical is "Days." Thank you for the days. That song, I think, has been used in many, many adverts and probably on film soundtracks. And I'm just like, this is a level of mainstream that you don't need me to say, oh well, here's what I think about Days and Waterloo Sunset, because this is stuff that I just expect people to know. Even you, even the Zoomer sitting there, will have come across these songs at some point. Maybe on your favorite anime show or something. They played Days once. I don't know. And the final track that I would consider to be hyper canonical is Lola, number 25 there. Those are, I would say, the 6 songs that are super duper mainstream of the Kinks. Okay. And the other song that I have not been able to play because it's blocked on YouTube, which I won't be able to talk about, is 20th Century Man, which is the lead track on Muswell Hillbillies. That is a brilliant song, one of their best ever songs. And it's just unfortunate I'm not going to be able to talk about that because it is it's blocked on YouTube. So obviously those songs I'm not going to be talking about later on. I'm also not going to be talking about any of the songs I talked about last time. I'm going to, I've got a whole new I'm going to talk about 20 odd songs later on, and the albums that they came from. But, there is that other stream, the last week's stream to listen to as well. Okay, so with all of that said, I'm going to carry on here. And this is all of the albums the Kinks ever produced. I think it's 24 studio albums that they had. Many, many other live albums and compilations and so on. Probably over like 50 or 60. But in terms of studio albums, this is the list here. They started in 1964. The debut album was Kinks. They split up in 1994. Their final album was Phobia in 1993. And there you can see all of the albums. I would say they have 4 distinct phases, which are, among rock critics and Kink fans and so on, it's very common to talk about these specific eras of the Kinks. Okay, so there's the early proto-punk period. That's the period of You Really Got Me and All of the Day and All of the Night. There was something called the British Invasion. Again, somebody asked me on Twitter, what's the British Invasion? I responded rather kind of snarkily in the moment, but I appreciate not everybody knows everything. In the 1960s, there was a moment where a lot of British bands went over to America, the Beatles being the most famous, but also there was the Rolling Stones, the Who, the Kinks, and many other groups as well. And there was an explosion of British bands going over to America and selling millions of records. And this is known in rock history as the British Invasion. And it started in about 63, 64, and it probably lasted the early part of it until about 65, 66. And then after then, a lot of those British Invasion bands then go on to become more quote unquote serious artists. They start, so if you follow the trajectory of the Beatles, after they make Help, they then become more grown up and start making albums and trying to make an artistic statement rather than just kind of, you know, she loves me, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. And the Kinks were right in there. They were one of those bands. The thing that set the Kinks apart was their very raw sound. They had a very rough, raw, fuzzy sound. And that is because the guitarist, Dave Davis, took a razor blade and cut the wire on his amp to create that fuzz effect back in 1964. Now these days we've had like what 50 years of people with fuzzy guitars, right? But it was actually Dave Davis creating that kind of fuzzy noise on his amp that gave the Kinks a unique sound on stuff like "You Really Got Me," "All of the Day and All the Night," and those first two albums there, which are basically full of like R&B covers, really simple kind of three uh it's three power chords, basically the same three notes over and over again. And because of their very raw sound, um, a lot of people credit the early Kinks with being like the forerunners of metal, punk, and they sometimes call it proto punk, right? Because it's really simple, it's raw, it's fuzzy, and yeah. But they fairly quickly, I would say, grew out of that because, as we'll see, Ray Davis, the lead singer and the main songwriter, has much more artistic ambitions from the very get go, pretty much. So, from the Kink controversy, and certainly from Face to Face onwards, they become a very different sort of band, and they change their sound. And typically speaking, the run from 1966, which is Face to Face, that's the equivalent of Help by the Beatles in the Kinks back catalogue, right? Um, which would make Something Else their Revolver. I mean, I don't want to take this too far. It would, but yeah, there's basically a lot of the 60s bands follow a similar trajectory where they get more and more ambitious as they're, you know, as they make more albums, and as they get older. So the run from Fist to Face to Muswell Hillbillies, 1971. So a run of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 albums plus Percy, which is a soundtrack, is considered to be the Kinks' golden age, right? And it's very, very common to, when you're reading around the Kinks, when you see references to the golden age, they're talking 1966 to 1971. Okay. Then Ray Davis, the lead song writer and the lead singer, so one of the things the Kinks do is they start writing concept albums. Okay. Something Else by the Kinks, some people consider to be the first concept album. Some people even claim Face to Face is a concept album, because basically there's a theme connecting all of the songs. So on Something Else, the theme connecting all the songs is kind of social commentary, social observation. Kinks Are the Village Green Preservation Society is based, all of the songs are about kind of English kind of country life or aspects of a British culture that he wants to preserve, and the Village Green, of course. Arthur is a concept album because it's all about this guy who kind of grew up, in the kind of he was basically born in the Victorian era, and he lived through the two world wars, and it's Ray Davis's kind of homage to that generation who lived through the two world wars, and his lament for the kind of loss of empire. So all of the songs are on that theme. Lola versus the Power Men is a concept album because it's about a guy who breaks into the record industry and has to deal with sleazy managers and the Power Man, who is a kind of a character who stands in for the money power or something like that. Muswell Hillbillies is a concept album because all of the songs are American, and it's based around this idea that these guys are living in London, and the people are living in London in Muswell Hill, but all of their influences are taken from America, and American culture is kind of invading the London space, if that makes sense. And that's a very socially conscious album as well. So all of the songs are about, being kind of paranoid and media influence and brainwashing and stuff like that. So he'd already written like 5 or 6 concept albums, and he became increasingly interested and ambitious around these ideas of the concept. And from 1972 until 1976, he releases a series of concept albums which were more narrative driven, more like kind of musicals in a way. And this period is known as the theatrical period, right? The theatrical period. Everybody's in Showbiz, Preservation Act 1 and 2. The Kinks present a soap opera. The Kinks present Schoolboys in Disgrace. These 5 albums were brought out with a record label called RCA. In the earlier period, in the golden age, all of their records came out with a label called Pye, Pye. They then got a 5-album deal with RCA, and basically Ray Davies massively pissed off the record label because he was just releasing these kind of like rock operas, basically. And yeah, we'll get on to that in a second. And then after Schoolboys in Disgrace, RCA basically said, right, Ray, that's enough. This is enough of this bullshit. Stop it with the theatrical stuff. Nobody wants this. We're dropping you. Basically, they dropped the Kinks. They booted them off the record label, and they were picked up then by another record label called Arista, who were always an interesting record label. Arista. I feel like they had David Ackles on there, who's one of my favorite little singer-songwriters back in the. They always picked up kind of more interesting acts, but when they went to Arista, the owner of that basically told them, no more of this theatrical kind of rock opera stuff. You have to get back to basics. And so and they adopted a kind of arena rock, hard rock kind of sound, and a more mainstream sound, basically from Sleepwalker in 1977 until the very end. They returned to being a much more conventional kind of rock band who played, arenas and toured and stuff like that in America. So, generally speaking, in the early proto-punk period, they had a lot of hit records, back-to-back number ones, and huge radio play, and they were very, very popular and commercially successful in that period. Okay. But then in 1965, they got involved in a number of kind of onstage fights, and they were kind of badly behaved and things when they were touring in America. There was an altercation in a TV studio, which we'll talk about soon, and they basically ended up getting banned by the American Federation of Musicians, and they were banned from touring in America for 4 years, which had a massive impact on their money-making potential, and it basically closed off the American market to the Kinks when they were right at their very peak. And also around this time, Ray Davies was said to have suffered some sort of nervous breakdown, maybe because they were banned from America, or maybe for other reasons. And this is really where they turn more kind of inwards and become much more kind of English and make these kind of this amazing run of albums that is known as the Golden Age. But of course, they couldn't tour in America, and they couldn't. Their record label and stuff like didn't basically barely promoted them in America. They also had problems being promoted in Britain as well. And so basically there's a massive drop off in their sales. Their Golden Age, which is an amazing run of albums, none of them sold well. To give you an idea, the last album to chart in the UK was the Village Green. Kinks are the Village Green Preservation Society. And Arthur, Lola, Muswell Hillbillies, none of them charted. Like, i.e., they didn't come in the top 40 albums in the UK. So even though they were extremely critically successful, the kind of record buying public, certainly in this country, seemed to have lost interest, or they weren't promoted, right? So, for example, Lola, I think, was a number 1 or a number 2 hit. You'd have to double check, but Lola, the single, sold really well. But Lola, the album, was not promoted. It just wasn't like they weren't given the kind of same push as some of the other big 60s act at this time for whatever reason. So that's kind of an interesting thing. I think part of it was that they were seen as being difficult to work with. Ray Davis was difficult to work with. Dave was seen as a kind of hellraiser and stuff due to the fights and things. So yeah, there was there are many different reasons, but even though they were getting better as songwriters and their material was getting better, their sales were actually dropping off all through this period. Then when he started making the theatrical stuff, like From Everybody's in Showbiz, and certainly with Preservation Act 1 and 2, the critics then really savagely turned on the Kinks. And I mean, seriously, you want to read some like vitriol, the ire and scorn and hatred poured on the RCA albums, the theatrical albums, it's just unreal. And this is something that we're going to be doing on this stream, which is actually reevaluating some of this stuff, because conventional kind of Rolling Stone, Melody Maker, Uncut magazine wisdom has it that basically after Muswell Hillbillies, the Kinks fall off a cliff and nothing is worth listening to from 1972 onwards. That is not true. And on this stream, I'm gonna be kind of doing my bit to set the record straight. I would say, and I'll just say right at the top here, Preservation Act 1 and 2 is not as bad as the critics made out. It's actually really interesting, and there's lots of good songs on those 2 albums. Even Schoolboys in Disgrace and the Soap Opera, which are really kind of campy and silly in some ways, have got good songs, and we'll be playing some of those songs later on. So I would say the theatrical period really is some of the most unfairly and unfairly panned, and I would say downright underrated albums ever produced by a major act, right? Considering how famous the Kinks are, they've got a lot of stuff that people just don't know about because it was just buried by critics and not promoted, and commercially and critically unsuccessful equals, so that they didn't have like a big machine behind them, which is interesting. Then in this kind of in the post, so when they come back with Arista and Sleepwalker in 1977, these albums actually start to make a dent in America. If you have a look, Sleepwalker, Misfits, Low Budget, Give the People What They Want, State of Confusion, Word of Mouth, they all sold pretty well in America. Not like number 1 albums, right? But number 11 on the US Billboard Top 100. It's not bad. Like in the early 80s, that's quite a lot of sales. Like if you have a look, some of these records, they all sold like over 100,000, 200,000. They all sold quite a lot. And of course, they were constantly touring in America. They'd missed out on touring America in their in the kind of golden age and in their heyday, but they kind of made up for it here. What's interesting is that even though these albums sell well in America and they're touring in America, in the UK, they don't tour, they don't sell any album. Like none of these albums from Sleepwalker onwards chart in the UK. Not one of them, which is really, really quite remarkable for a major British rock band like the Kinks. Basically, kind of nowhere in the UK scene. And this is something that you'll see Ray Davies talk about in the interview clips, where basically, like in the UK, they were just thought of as almost like a kind of like a novelty, not a novelty, but like an oldies act. You know, these are the guys from 1965. Like there were people who just didn't realize the Kinks were still a band in those days. So that's an interesting quirk that I hadn't quite appreciated until I kind of dug into a lot of this stuff. All right, so let's move on in the interest of time. I should say that despite the poor promotion and despite only coming like 35 in the charts in 1968, Village Green is one of the biggest sleeper hit albums of all time. They actually were certified gold in 2018, which sounds bizarre, but they finally sold like over 500,000 copies of Village Green or whatever. And the thing that really led to a massive revival of interest in the Kinks, ironically, was after they split up. So they split up in 93, 94. And just at that time, Britpop becomes the thing. And of course, Oasis were massive fans of the Kinks. And they actually just straight ripped the Kinks. Like there's a bit of Wonder Boy that is, you know, almost note for note reproduced in She's Electric, for example. Blur were a massive fan of the Kinks and flat out stole entire song titles and concepts from them. Like, for example, the Kinks have a song about a man who's got a house in the country. One of Blur's most famous songs is House in the Country. Exactly the same theme, you know, Modern Life is Rubbish is very, very Kinks inspired. And the Britpop acts were very forthcoming in declaring their influences. So there was a massive resurgence of interest in the Kinks in the 90s. Of course, I was a teenager at that time, and I got into the Kinks at that time through the Britpop. And obviously, the Kinks were a lot better than all the Britpop bands. So, you know, I then really got into them. So I would have been one of these 500,000 young lads buying Village Green and listening to it for the first time in 1996 or whatever. So, or 1997 or 1998, whenever it happened to be. So, yeah, it's worth mentioning that they had a lot of retrospective sales for those albums that didn't sell well back in the 60s due to Britpop mainly. Okay. All right. Yeah, and there's the list of hypercanonical Kinks songs that I was talking about earlier. I'll just go through them again. You Really Got Me, All of the Day and All the Night, Sunny Afternoon, Waterloo Sunset, Days, Lola, 20th Century Man. When I said I was going to be half an hour, we're going to be a bit longer than half an hour, folks, for this intro, so strap in. Sorry about that. Who are the Kinks then? So the lead singer is the guy in the yellow in the middle here, Ray Davies. His younger brother, Dave, who's 3 years younger than him, is the lead guitarist. Okay, and the heart of the band is Ray Davies and Dave Davies, who are both from Muswell Hill. They grew up in London. They were Arsenal fans. They always stayed in London. They were, despite all of their tours of America and so on, Ray always wanted to produce stuff in England because he felt very rooted in England. It's the inspiration for many of his songs, which we'll get onto. So I think in 1972, 73, they made a studio called Conk Studios. Custom made. They had There was like a snooker table there, and there was a place to hang out, and it was like a state of the art studio that they made. And up until fairly recently, I don't know if it's still there, but many other artists then went to record their own albums and songs at Conk Studios. They'd hire it out from the Kinks, basically. Um, I know there was some story that they were going to sell it a few years back, but I don't know if that actually went through or not. But so yeah, they made their own studio, which is pretty cool. But anyway, Ray and Dave are the heart of the band. Ray writes all the songs, and he's the lead singer. Dave is the axe man, the lead guitarist, responsible for the fuzzy sound in the early days, and sometimes he sings songs. He's got a slightly different, he takes the lead vocals on "Death of a Clown," for example, and there's a few other songs where he takes the lead. He wrote "Living on a Thin Line," for example. Like, he's a decent songwriter in his own right, Dave Davis. But really, he's the responsible for most of the guitar work. Most Kinks songs have a moment where Dave is unleashed for a solo or two. Um, and one of the things that makes the Kinks are famous for is the rivalry between the two brothers. Even though they're the heart of the band, they didn't always get on. There was always creative tensions between them. They argued. They were brothers, They were jealous of each other, all sorts of things. I think Dave, as the younger brother, felt a bit overshadowed, dominated a bit. Ray's aloof. We'll get on to some of the kind of personality differences between them. I've never been interested in things like this when it comes to artists. But given that I'm doing this intro, I thought some of you may be interested in this sort of thing. I also think it does play into the dynamic of the band, the different personalities of the two brothers. It's kind of inescapable with them. They've even got whole songs about their relationship. And when you start to really get to know the subject matter, Ray is actually influenced by his family. I think they had six sisters, and various of those sisters are inspirations for various songs and even whole albums, which we'll get onto. The drummer was Mick Avery. He's the guy on the right there. He was good. He was a good-looking lad. Apparently had lots of success with the ladies and stuff back in the day. He was the kind of I don't know. He was the one who would have had the girls and after the show and all that sort of stuff. Apparently, he was originally with the Rolling Stones, and then for some reason got replaced, or for whatever reason, he ended up joining the Kinks and didn't stay with the Rolling Stones. And by every account I've read, he was a really nice guy. He was just a nice guy. He was a drummer, kind of, a lot of drummers are kind of happy-go-lucky chaps, I guess. But yeah, he was an integral part of the group, and I think he stayed with them pretty much all the way until the early mid 80s, maybe. I think 80. Don't quote me on this. Like 83, 84, he leaves the band for some reason. But yeah, he's basically with them for most of the time. That ban from the touring in America and by the American Union people. One of the reasons for that is that Dave Davis was apparently quite a kind of wild child. He was, more likely to be involved in the kind of drug stuff, like he had, he got involved in a lot of things rockers do. And he could be, I think I read one interview that said that his nickname in the band was Mr. Hyde because he was a very Jekyll and Hyde character, and really it depended on what day you had Dave on, would depend on what he was like. So he, by all intents and purposes, he was a difficult character. And apparently Dave and Mick would have fights on stage, Famously, Mick Avery, I think he like threw his pedal at Dave or something like on stage, and they had like punches were thrown, and they used to like fight on stage. And this is what got them. This is one of the things that got them banned from America is due to the testiness, and the kind of difficult relationship between Dave and Mick. Um, Pete, the bassist was Pete Quaife, who went to school with the brothers Davis. He actually left the group briefly in 1966 because he broke his foot or something. He had an accident and broke his leg. And another bassist called John Dalton joined the group briefly. Then Quaife recovered and was like, "Oh, I'm going to come back now." And Dalton was basically benched. And then Quaife left the group again in 1969. He was like, "Oh, I've had enough." And I was trying to find out like why did Quaife leave, and reading interviews, he basically said like he was bored because the Kinks weren't when they were banned from America. Ray also decided that he wasn't going to go out and stuff. That they didn't tour, they didn't do shows, they didn't gig or anything. So he said that basically from 1965 until 1969, all they did really was sit at home and collect royalty checks. He was like, "Well, I'm a bassist. I need to work. Like I'm not doing anything here. Doing like one album a year is not a lot of work. So he was like, yeah, it was good to collecting paychecks, but he wanted to play bass. So ironically, he then left the group and was replaced by John Dalton, and immediately the Kinks started touring again, and basically never stopped touring from 1969 until the very end. Like they basically were constantly on the road from 69 to 93, as far as I can tell. So yeah, interesting, but Quaife never rejoined the group after that. And Dalton, in the interviews I've read with him, basically said like he never felt secure that he was really part of the group. He was like, I get the impression that Ray was a little bit kind of not disdainful, but it's almost like he treated the bassist and the drummer, but especially the bassist, as kind of a support act for his. I mean, I've seen interviews where he talks about the other band members as people he casts in his plays, right? So yeah, there is this kind of odd relationship between you've got the heart of the band, which is the brothers, and then there's the other two who were kind of there, but were just like Ray just saw them as part of his vision or whatever. And this is exacerbated, and I've read lots and lots of interviews in preparation for this with various band members and things. The way Mick Avery tells it, basically Ray would not go out. These guys, they were all from like working class areas. They were from London. They loved going to the pub and stuff like this. And they were rock stars, so they wanted to go out, they wanted to party, they wanted to, do the tour stuff. But apparently Ray he just didn't go out with them. He just didn't hang out with the lads. He kept himself to himself. He kind of either like saw himself apart from it or above it, or he was distant, according to the Mick Avery. So he almost kind of set himself apart from the rest of the band. And they would just like he almost kind of treated them as they were there to perform his songs, if that makes any sense. So you can see why there could resentment could build up over time, because Ray's, how can I say, like he wasn't like a people person in that way, according to Mick Avery. Dave, according to all the accounts, was the opposite, right? So if Ray is an extreme introvert who didn't go out and he was a bit different from everyone else and he was a bit shy and stuff like that, Dave was a complete extrovert who went out, went to all the parties, took all the drugs, did all the crazy stuff. Had some undesirable mates apparently and things like that. And Dave would get the band into all sorts of scrapes, and they, get them thrown out of places, and the fights that we talked about. Um, you know, and the other two band members, uh, with the bassist, whoever that happened to be, Pete Quaife in the glory years, and then John Dalton later, and Mick Avery, almost they kind of either acted as peacemakers or they were just kind of happy to go along for the ride or whatever. But all of the stories involving the Kinks don't have Ray there because he's just back at home or in his hotel room or just not with them. So that's a kind of interesting dynamic, which will then later play into not only the dynamics between the two brothers, which we'll get onto in a second, but also I think plays into Ray's songwriting because he clearly sees himself as being not a part of. He is a kind of distant observer who views things from afar. And this I think is something that interests me because I've always felt a little bit like that. Even when, I mean, how can I say, as someone who's a little bit antisocial myself, even when I'm with a crowd, even when I'm with people, even if I'm out in the pub, I always also feel like I'm watching them from afar as well. And this is something that Ray Davis certainly has um, as an aspect of his personality, which is interesting to me. So yeah, that's a little bit about the various different band members. I won't linger on that too much. I've got a little bit more detail about uh, the banning from the America by the American Federation of Musicians. I'll just read this. The Kinks were a hard-drinking band who brought the party to each town. They passed by with their wild lifestyle, sometimes spilling out on stage. One such occasion in May 1965 saw an on-stage fight occur between the brother of Ray, Dave Davis, and drummer Mick Avery. The scuffle left Davis in hospital and landed Avery in jail. It was part of a long line of misdemeanors. The tour was a chaotic one, to say the least. Poor ticket sales at the start of the tour left promoter Betty Kay unable to pay the Kinks in cash, as she had originally promised. This understandably pissed the band off immensely. So, in retaliation, they delivered a shortened set at their Reno show and put the near empty Sacramento crowd to the sword by having them comically sit through an extended version of You Really Got Me for most of the concert. And legend has it, they played You Really Got Me for 45 minutes straight at that particular gig, which, as you can imagine, would have really annoyed everybody who was there. Things then got even worse when the band decided they would cancel their San Francisco show if they weren't going to get paid in advance. It was the last straw for the promoter, and it saw Kay fire back by filing a formal complaint with the American Federation of Musicians. The union had the power to withhold work permits for British musicians if they misbehaved on stage or refused to perform without good reason. That's exactly what would happen. There would be one final low point on the tour, which occurred backstage before their appearance on the Dick Cavett show on August the 2nd. Ray Davis would recall the incident vividly in his autobiography. Some guy who said he worked for the TV company walked up and accused us of being late. Then he started making anti-British comments. Things like, just because the Beatles did it, every mop-topped, spotty-faced, limey juvenile thinks he can come over here and make a career for himself. You're just a bunch of commie wimps. Davis continued, when the Russians take over Britain, don't expect us to come over and save you this time. The Kinks, huh? Well, once I file my report on you guys, you'll never work in the USA again. You're going to find out just how powerful America is, you limey bastard. The rest is a blur. However, I do recall being pushed and swinging a punch and punched back. So basically, Ray Davis ended up punching this American TV producer who was bad-mouthing the band and bad-mouthing Britain. And the Kinks found themselves on the receiving end of a 4-year ban from touring in the States, sanctioned by the American Federation of Musicians, which severely hampered the band's career. So whether it was their manager for the fight on stage or whether it was this TV producer, nobody will ever know. But that is basically how they ended up getting banned from America. Here is some stuff on the legendary difficult relationship between Ray and Dave. These are from various interviews that I scoured. Ray said, so basically, the journalist asks Ray, so is the feud on or off? Davis smirks. He's my little brother. What can I say? Some people say he's a jumped up upstart, but I say take him as you find him. He feels it's his duty to have a swipe at me occasionally, and that's all right. We've come a long way from the crib. Only sometimes he can be negative for the sake of being negative. I've had to bang my head against the wall so many times with him. He's such a bright lad, but he lets himself down. And then in another interview, this is another interview with Rave, Dave has been described. Dave has described your brotherly relationship as like Cain and Abel, and Ray just quips, "It's more like Satan and Jesus." And I don't know which way round he has that. So, and then this is Dave, who also in an interview said, so this is from an interview with Dave. Yet the two remain divided. They are rarely in contact, but do not see each other socially, and only meet to discuss "quote unquote" business. This is Dave. I sometimes think that Ray was only happy for 3.5 years in his life, and those were the 3.5 years before I was born, Dave admitted. He is a vain, egocentric, narcissistic arsehole, but I wouldn't have anybody call him that except me, because I love him to death. So that is the basic difficulty between the two of them. And this story really is quite remarkable. Perhaps the moment that best sums up their relationship came at Dave's 50th birthday bash. It was never a given that Ray would be there. Perhaps he was entente cordiale. Perhaps. Well, Dave thought so, until Ray flung Dave's birthday cake on the ground and stamped on it. I was actually stunned when I read that. I couldn't believe that he'd buy a birthday cake for his brother at the age of 50 and then stamped on the birthday cake. So, yeah, I mean, sibling rivalry, love, hate. It is very much a part of the band. And I'm very often ready to dismiss this stuff as salacious, and maybe it's the old kind of literary critic in me, death of the author stuff. I don't like lingering on this sort of thing. But as I've read many different interviews now and different accounts, clearly both Ray and Dave believed that this tension between them was actually integral to the creative process. Like the contrast between Ray and Dave, they kind of spurred each other on, right? Because Ray in all his interviews basically says that he's like a shut-in. He's like doesn't want to go out. He doesn't want to see people. He's kind of a loner. But Dave always threw himself into things. He was the extrovert. He was the one who got the band into all the scrapes and things, and basically kind of forced Ray into many situations where he'd have to deal with the real world. The way Ray puts it is, Dave is of this world, and basically, by intimation, Ray Davis, is not of this world. He kind of sits apart from it, or sees himself as apart from it. So, in a strange way, Dave forces Ray to confront like reality in some way, and that is often a catalyst for various different songs that they've written over the years. So it's actually a very interesting part of it that I had not appreciated before. Now, just before we get on to the interviews and then the long segment, this may end up being like a 3-hour video, folks. Strap in. I want to talk a little bit about Ray Davis's songwriting modes. Ray is clearly the creative force behind the group. Most of the albums are his vision. He's one of the great British songwriters. If you type in Kinks interview on YouTube, you'll basically see like David Bowie and Eric Clapton and all these different people talking about the genius of Ray Davies. He really is one of this country's best ever songwriters. Easily on par with any of the Beatles, for example. Some people would put Ray Davies above the Beatles in terms of pure songwriting, right? I don't really want to get into those sorts of debates, but let's just say he's up there. Like in my mind, he's on the same level as a Bowie or a Paul McCartney or somebody like this. Okay, but he's got a focus and a way of writing that is somewhat different from them as well. Okay. I kind of worked out that he's basically got 4 different types of songs. He's got the straight up rockers, You Really Got Me, All of the Day and All the Night. Sometimes later on he just has straight up rockers, right? Kind of hard rock songs. Then he's got storytelling songs where there's a narrative and he's telling a story through the song. Then a lot of his songs are basically character studies where he is either seeing the world through another character's eyes or he's writing about a character. Okay. Now, other songwriters do this as well. Think of Eleanor Rigby. Eleanor Rigby by the Beatles is a character study. Okay. I would argue that as a character study songwriter, probably Ray Davies has no equal in British or American rock. He is a master of looking at and isolating the essence of particular people. And one of the things that I think sets him apart a little bit is that he is always drawn to everyday, normal, mundane. Like, a lot of people want to write songs about outcasts or weirdos or, people who stand out from the crowd. Whereas what Ray wants to do a lot of the time is he wants to kind of take an average person, think of the crowd at Waterloo Station, all of the normies walking past. And what Ray wants to do sometimes is pluck a normie out of the crowd and kind of analyze them under a microscope a little bit. What is this person? What is this person's life? What do they live for? What motivates them? What do they love? So yeah, he does a lot of that. And then the 4th type of song, and this is something else that he does really well, is place songs. So many Kinks songs are evocative of a particular place, a particular time, and a particular place. Again, Waterloo Sunset is intimately connected with that little strip at the South Bank there, Waterloo Station. I mean, I've been there so many times because I used to commute through Waterloo Station. So, and I've actually done it. I've stood on the bridge and I've looked up you looked up the river when the sun's coming down. It is quite amazing. Or sunny afternoon, right? You can feel and see where they are, what the place is, where at the time, and a lot of his songs, sitting by the riverside, or you get a sense of where you are and what the social milieu is, and he is so good at that. And a lot of his songs combine all 4 of these. So you can have a song that tells a story, that is a character study, that is evocative of a certain place, that is also a rocker, that rocks out. Something like trying to think of a good example of that. I mean, there are so many. Autumn Almanac pretty much is a song like that. It rocks out, but it has all of those other elements as well. And what I've got now, before we get to the interviews, is a couple of little snippets. I have to get an insight into what made Ray tick as a storyteller. So, I'd say that his sensibilities were somewhat out of step with the countercultural zeitgeist of the 60s and of his peers. When we talk about counterculture in the 60s, a lot of that is kind of boomers, or some of them are slightly older, silent gen. Ray Davies was a boomer. He was born in 1944. Some of his contemporaries were a little bit older. Basically rebelling against the older generation, the generation who fought the war, the greatest generation, and trying to find their own voice and breaking free of the kind of staid conservative world of the 1950s, something like this, right? Or of the 1940s. Ray didn't feel like that. Ray, his attitude towards the whole thing was different, and I think there's a number of different quotations from him here that will bear this out. This is Ray Davies in April 1966. So this is long before he wrote most of his most famous work, 2 years before Village Green, right? So this is basically right at the very start of the band. He says, I hope England doesn't change. I'm writing a song now called You Ain't What You Used to Be, which expresses what I feel. I hope we don't get swallowed up by America and Europe. I'm really proud of being British. I don't care if a bloke votes Labour or Conservative, as long as he appreciates what we've got here. We have so much that is great compared with these other countries, and people just don't realise it. I want to keep writing very English songs. That was Ray Davies in 1966 in April. He's seeking to preserve the old ways, especially traditional British things, on Village Green. And he was deeply sincere. I had grown up, and I said this on the last stream, believing that a lot of the Kinks stuff was kind of sarcastic or piss-taking in some way. But it's very obvious, both seeing the trajectory of the band after the 70s and watching him in interviews and seeing the things that he says, he was not taking the Michael. He was deadly serious. Ray stated that the album, talking about Village Green, expressed his love of traditional British things and his hope that they would persist. He added, I never go watch cricket anymore, but I like to know it's there. It's like not being able to read Eagle anymore. And it's not bad for people to grow up and not, he says, and it's bad for people to grow up and not know what a China Cup is or a Village Green. In other words, I'd rather have the actual things here and not just the pictures of the things that we used to have. And if you listen to Village Green, the album is not only obsessed with these preserving these kind of the Village Green and all of the strawberry tarts and all the rest of it. The whole album is about people taking pictures and the inauthenticity in a way and the kind of existential crisis that comes with feeling the need to take a photo of something to prove that you were there. And I think that Ray saw a kind of post-modernization or distancing that came from the fact that now, rather than having the experience itself, rather than having the thing itself, as King Lear once said, you've got the ersatz version of the thing. You've got the picture of it. And that's one of the songs we'll play later on, people taking pictures of each other. You know, one of the lines in that song is people taking pictures of each other just to prove they existed. So, in other words, if you don't take a picture of it, it's not real. And what he's trying to say is actually the thing itself is the real thing. The photo is just a photo. And I think that this is bearing in mind he's writing in 1968, before Facebook, before Instagram, before social media. I went on to Magaluf earlier this year, and I told you, I remember going to a poolside, and there were these girls going dressed to the nines to the swimming pool, just to take selfies by the pool. So they go to the pool dressed to the nines. They wouldn't get in the pool. They wouldn't like sunbathe or anything. They go, they take a few selfies by the pool, pose, and that's it. That was the whole experience. So it's actually extremely prescient analysis and insight. This is the other extraordinary thing about Ray Davies, is that he saw so many of these things at the time, but he was so young. like these are all things that have occurred to many of us now. But like I'm I'm in my 40s. He was writing when he was in his like early 20s here. So, I mean, I guess this is what genius is. He getting in some sort of sixth sense or insight from somewhere that he knew what was going on. The Kinks were always staunchly pro-British and pro-English. One of the things that Davis was also famous for was refusing to sing with an American accent. Um, The US touring band left the group comparatively isolated from American influence, guiding them away from their earlier blues-based riffing towards a distinctly English style. In the year that followed, Ray grew obsessed with aspects of English aristocracy and the country's dying traditions. He expressed his pride in Britain in an April 1966 interview, wishing that its culture could remain distinct from that of America and Europe. And that was the quote that I had earlier on. He further indicated his desire to keep writing very English songs and hoped to convey his feelings in a new composition. And this refusal to sing with an American accent also got the band in trouble various times. He was asked to tone down the Englishness of his material by promoters several times in the US, but he always refused. One example is much later on. In November 1962, a song called Come Dancing came out, which is on one of the later albums. I forget which one. Is it Give the People What They Want? Word of Mouth, State of Confusion. I think it's from State of Confusion. Although Arista Records founder Clive Davis had reservations about releasing the single in the United States due to the English subject matter of dance halls, the track saw an American single release in April 1983. And Come Dancing came, it sold pretty well, that record. And we'll play that later on, and you can hear just how it's not just English, it's like specifically England in the mid-50s or something, right? It's a very specific time and place, and it's extremely evocative, but it's something that he always refused to give up, despite a lot of pressure from promoters and record labels over the years. Ray consistently stood against the changes that were happening to Britain in the 60s and the 70s. Muswell Hillbillies in the liner notes says, "I wanted to sound like I was the last man on the block who doesn't want his house torn down." Literally the man among the ruins. Of course, Muswell Hillbillies came out at a time where the British government were just tearing down like Victorian houses, and this was a big deal at the time. There was a in the video I made of Living on a Thin Line, there's material. Remember, there was that woman standing in the kind of rubble. All of those were from documentaries made by Nick Broomfield. One of them is called Who Cares? There's another one, you'll have to look it up. I can't remember the name. This was a huge deal at the time because the government were just tearing down old building rather than maintain them. They were just tearing them down and putting up like these horrible, brutalist high rises everywhere. And people who'd lived their whole lives in communities grew up on these streets were then kind of dragooned into these horrible little flats. As someone, Davis, as someone who grew up on those streets, was watching the communities that he had grown up in getting torn down. And obviously, like any normal human being, he was going to feel sad about that. So this is another part of the social context of the band, really. Promoters wanted the Kinks to keep playing power chord hits from 64, 65. I already mentioned they once played You Really Got Me for 45 minutes straight in Rebellion. And this is an interesting little snippet. In an attempt to revive the group's commercial standing, the Kinks' management booked them on a month-long package tour for April, drawing the group away from the studio. The venues were largely cabarets and clubs. Headlining was Frampton's group, The Herd. In general, the teeny boppers were not there to see the boring old Kinks, who occasionally had to endure chants of, "We want the Herd," during their brief appearances, commented Andy Miller. The tour proved taxing and stressful. Peter Quaife recalled, "It was a chore. Very dull, boring, and straightforward. We did 20 minutes, but it used to drive me absolutely frantic, standing on stage playing the same 3 notes over and over again. So you can see that there was this disconnect going on between where the band wanted to go, where the audience was, or where these teeny bopper audiences of the mid 60s were, who wanted like kind of Beatlemania type stuff, I guess, and what the promoters wanted. So that there was always this tension between the kind of man, the record label, and the demands of the commercial rock business versus what the band want to do. Not just Ray, but the whole band. Their heart was in a different place, and they wanted to do something else. So this is something very important to remember. Disc jockeys and music journalists of the period did not like the band's turn to social observation. So this is these are reviews of Autumn Almanac, which is a brilliant song, right? Nick Jones of Melody Maker asked of Autumn Almanac, which I played on the last show and we analysed a little bit. Is it time that Ray stopped writing about grey suburbanites going about their fairly unemotional daily business? Ray works to a formula, not a feeling, and it's becoming rather boring, says Nick Jones of Melody Maker. Disc jockey Micah Hearn calls the song a load of old rubbish. So you could, I guess what I'm trying to show here is that whatever success the Kinks had, right, from about 1965, 1966 onwards, came against a backdrop of this kind of like basic hostility coming from many parts of the music industry and hack journalists and disc jockeys and so on. They did not. A lot of people did not like what Davis was up to with Dead End Street, Autumn Almanac, the sort of stuff on Something Else, Village Green. So this is how you can tell what truly counterculture was, right? Everybody talks about counterculture. Davis was doing something that was truly against the spirit of the times. And you can just kind of, when you start reading between the lines, you can start to tell what was happening here. Ray, as time went on, only got more political rather than less. And his basic orientation, loving England, wanting to preserve the old things and so on, never changed. He said, "My ongoing theme," Ray said in 1993, "is about control of the masses by the dictatorship of the media. I am getting more and more political the older I get. So many of my songs stem from political themes. Control of the masses by the dictatorship of the media." I mean, you can draw your own conclusions about where he was politically, but I honestly think that many of the things that we talk about now, Davis had foreseen, and Davis consistently for pretty much 30 straight years over the course of the band's life tried to document what was happening and register his kind of dissatisfaction with the direction that the country was headed in. He always sought some rootedness in the past. This is another interview that I found. The interviewer asks, "You wrote songs about a world that was already disappearing around you, which is unusual for a young person." Davis says, "I wasn't rebelling against the older generation. I was celebrating the wonderful generation of my parents and grandparents. I'm not a traditionalist, but I'm aware of the value of traditions. I'm not saying everybody should be retro, but at the same time, it's too easy to move on and not take something from the past." So you can just see where his heart was. You can see what was driving a lot of this stuff, and it should be obvious by now that he was not taking the piss out of these people. He claims that he's not nostalgic, but that his mood comes from the nature of the British Isles. So in that same interview, the interviewer says, "Why do even the chirpiest Kinks songs have an undercurrent of melancholy?" His answer to this I thought was really interesting. He says, "It's the nature of the British Isles. Damp. We're on an island, but I'm not a wistful or nostalgic person generally. I've got a wicked sense of humour and a cruel wit. Britain and the countryside is very dear to my heart, but things like the Village Green Preservation Society are celebrating values rather than saying that we've all got to live that way. I try to live in the moment, but when I look back on my songs, they're a celebration of a time when I was born. Even though I'm critical of many things, I don't know any writer who can create something that hasn't touched them personally. So, a very interesting answer to all of these questions. In that same interview in 2015, Ray said that we no longer have a nation because community is gone. Where are we as a nation? He was asked. Ray Davis, we don't have one. The great thing about gigs is people think it's okay, everything's all right. The world is media obsessed. How many times can Ed Miliband resign? The poor bastard. It's Twitterized, Skypeized infinity. Community was on the long way out a long time ago. I saw that happening when I was at school. Years ago, in places like Liverpool or working class London, people more or less did the same sort of work. Now you've got a computer technician living next door to an unmarried mother. Nothing in common socially. And the internet means people don't have to go out. They can download everything. You don't need people to exist. Music can be a touchstone for what's real. Very, very interesting and insightful comments from Ray Davis there. So that's my introduction. I said it was going to take half an hour. It actually took more like an hour and 15 minutes. So I apologize for my long-windedness. We're now going to watch half an hour of interviews with Ray and Dave Davis. I don't think the other members of the band were ever interviewed on TV. It was always Ray, mostly Ray alone, but sometimes he brought Dave in with him. You can, all of the stuff I've just talked about, the kind of where Ray stood in relation to his bandmates and in relation to society at large. You can have a look out for the rivalry between the two brothers, some of the kind of social attitudes. They're all in this kind of half an hour montage sequence of interview clips that I've put together. So I hope you enjoy this. And when I come back, we will then delve into the songs. If this stream has to go 4 hours, it has to go 4 hours. All right. See you soon.
Well, Ray, how long have the group been together as the Kinks?
About 4 years we've been together, but we've only had the name Kinks for about 2.
What were you before that?
We were called all sorts of names. We had the Ravens and any name that came along. I left it to the promoter. If he wanted to call us, something, thingamajigs, could call us anything he likes as long as we got the booking.
And what settled on the Kinks? What made you settle on that name?
Because it was a short name and people could remember it.
And have you had many changes in the group in that time?
Not really. Our regular bass player's got a broken foot, and that's the only change we've got so far.
Surely it's not all that funny, is it?
Well, no. But he thinks it's quite funny. I don't.
You hopped into the studio yesterday to say hello.
No, he's quite well, but we've got a substitute in. We've had him for about 4 weeks because our bass player had a car crash.
Well, we all wish him well anyway.
Oh, he's alright.
Well, now you're the baby of the group, aren't you?
Oh, yeah, all right, if you want to call me that.
And I believe you are a budding dress designer, isn't it?
Yeah? Well, I just happen to...
He doesn't wear them, he designs them.
Well, I don't think that's true because he did at one time design the group's outfits, didn't he?
Yeah, he designed suits, with capes and things.
My claim to fame.
Yes, it's one claim to fame.
And why did you stop wearing them?
Oh, they just weren't practical, So, being in a pop group, you have to sleep in the same
Anything
clothes.
I do is impractical.
Yeah, but no. When you're in a pop group, you have to travel, sleep, eat, drink, and meet people, do interviews in the same clothes, and you need something pretty durable.
Well, what about your songwriting? What about your songwriting? You write all of your own songs, don't you?
Yeah.
And what gives the inspiration for these?
Well, it's a difficult question, really. You just see anything, you could see a chair, you could get inspiration.
What gave you the inspiration for Sunday Afternoon?
Money, frankly.
Well, who are your own personal favourite pop stars at the minute?
The Hollies will probably be the next number one.
Why the Hollies?
Because I like them, they're very professional.
And who's yours?
I like Simon and Garfunkel. It's
Why?
good.
Oh yeah.
I don't know, they just seem to have something different to offer.
Drag songs.
Well, boys, thank you
topical.
very much indeed for
Thank
letting
you.
us have you today. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Right.
Sorry.
When you're sitting down making a song, working on it, or maybe just walking around doing the same thing, because this can often happen too, are you trying to do anything other than enlarge your bank balance?
Oh, definitely. You know.
It's not just strictly a commercial
No, oh no.
venture.
Actually, if it was, I wouldn't be able to do it. If I thought of it that way, I wouldn't be able to do it.
How do you think of it?
It's funny because you're not going to believe me, but I don't think of it when I do it. You know, you sort of have a few drinks or something, and you sit down, and you think of something that somebody said, or a television program you saw, say somebody in Vietnam getting shot or something, and it sort of forms a pattern in your brain, like a dream, like playing. I suppose you can compare it to dreaming as well. Sort of lots of things compressed, and it explodes. And I think, like music, is an emotion that like Ray can write a song about anything, or I can't. It's got to be an emotion first.
For the time being, I'm very busy trying to keep going, because I started off writing because we didn't have any material. Now I've found that I've got a way to put things over, put ideas over to people. And it's very interesting now, and I don't want to stop.
You're very disciplined about your writing, or do you wait for an idea to drop out of the sky?
Well, something I learned when I was trying to be a painter. You can't wait for inspiration. It's 99% hard work. And it is. But not hard work sitting down from 8 o'clock in the morning till 12 at night, just writing anything. You've got to think hard work is walking around talking to people, wanting to find out, wanting to know. And it's quite hard, and getting through to people. This is the hard part.
You're not, at least I'm guessing when I suggest this, you don't seem to me to be somebody who's particularly involved or concerned with contemporary themes of social injustice, this kind of thing. You seem to me to be rather a detached person who's taking a sort of bird's eye view of the situation.
You've got to be detached to a certain extent, but you've got to be truthful as well. And that's difficult, I think.
Why this necessity for a sort of detachment from the scene? For example, Waterloo Sunset, throughout that, all the time, there's this impression of you not like the others, looking down on this scene.
Yeah, but it's detached, but it isn't. It's so detached. It's welded together to everything else. It's like it's detached, but for a purpose.
That's a paradox which you understand, but I don't. Can you explain it?
This is a problem. Trying to... You take everything from that, from what you see. Say you've got I used to go on a train to art college. I used to get on at Charing Cross, go across the bridge. I used to come back at night. And I used to have little things in my mind that went on. I used to look in the windows and in the shops. And then a few years later, I'm doing something else. And I find myself at the same place. And it's still the same. Yet I've been very detached from it. I've been thousands of miles away from it. But all of a sudden I'm there again. And it's like, it may sound detached, the ideas might be detached, but at the same time they're inside people. I think that's as far as I can go with it.
How did you get the idea of the Waterloo Sunset, particularly?
Everything was right for it. It's like if I stopped writing, I went out and I went past buildings that reminded me of the song. Or it was just everything happened. I saw rivers and things, and I had to do it.
You mean every impression that you had kind of fell into the song?
Yeah, yeah. And it just felt right. That's why I did it. Because I like it. I like that place.
Still with us from earlier, Mr. Ray Davies. But first, Ray, how big a problem at the moment is this?
So who?
The lack of places for bands to play, for the bands themselves.
Well, it is a problem, I suppose. I put it down to agents and promoters. You know. They're the people. I think most bands, I know that if I got a good pub to play in, there's a nice atmosphere, I'd play there. You know, not from choice, maybe sometimes. But I disagree with something that Dave said. I think I disagree with everybody, actually. I think that Blockbuster, for instance, by The Sweet, is like 10 years ago. And it's nothing new. It's not revolutionary.
No, and for me, what I've seen in the pubs, they don't have that certain, I don't know, charisma factor. Call it what you like.
Depends how many drinks you've had. That's really what it's all
After
about.
a day in the office, you go there as straight as a die.
I go to a lot of pubs, to have a drink and to listen to music. And I find that the older people go there for the nostalgia of it all. They can hear the songs they heard when they were young. But also the younger people that go there, like the 20s and the under 20s, it's something new for them. And they're discovering it for the first time.
This gentleman's name is Ray Davies, and I want to show your album to camera. This is comparatively new, isn't it?
Yeah, that was me on a good night. So if you turn it around.
Turn it around, see
that's me on a bad night.
How's it doing? Or is it too soon to know?
Famously, I think.
Is it really?
Yeah. I'm not doing too good then.
Did you compose most of the music on that album?
Most of the stuff since '64.
You do it alone, or do you have any help?
Well, sometimes I get help.
I'm told you have a brother in the group.
Yeah,
is that true?
him. Yes, we're divorced at the moment.
Music has changed a great deal since you've come to America, hasn't it?
Since I've come to America,
Yeah.
or the band? Well, we first really came over here in '69 for a tour.
Yeah.
We'd had records out in the '60s.
But from the '60s to now, there's been quite a change, I would say.
Yeah, I went to a Bay City Rollers concert in LA, and it's just like when we started and the Beatles started.
Kids.
That hasn't really changed much.
The kids making all the same.
Yeah, I think the music's technically better. But
I wanted to ask you, when you most of the time when you perform, the kids scream through most of what you're doing.
not really.
Well, when the Bay City
Depends
Rollers,
what mood I'm in.
when the Bay City Rollers were here, that's what we got through most of their
Well,
performance.
that's part of the
Does
film
it-
set. Isn't
Can
it?
you still hear what you're doing up there?
Oh yeah, it's different now. We've gone through different things in music, and we've got a listening audience and a drinking audience and an audience who wants to listen to quieter songs. They really know our material, and they give us a chance. It's good.
You tend to keep more of a low profile than guys like Mick Jagger.
Yeah.
Is that by choice?
No,
or-
they're much better looking than I am. He's prettier than me.
Is that your choosing to?
What?
Is that your choosing to keep a low profile? or
Well,
would you?
not really. I'm not sort of showy type. Yeah, like,
You still have the original member. You came over here in the '60s, I was told. You
I
said the
did
late '60s.
Yeah, I came here, arrived, we were doing a world tour. It's our first hit. They said, get on a plane, you're going around the world. And we flew over from Taiwan or somewhere like that. And I'd been bitten by an animal in the foot. And we arrived at New York, got off the plane, I had this sort of blown up ankle. And they said, right, come to the studio, you've got to tap dance. We had to go to the studio and rehearse all these dance routines with a club foot.
What was it that bit you? I'm curious now.
It was an animal, a real animal.
You don't know what kind.
No, 4 legs, 4-legged animal.
What was it? A boar? A wild boar? Something like that? Or what?
It was boring.
You don't. You really don't know what bit you.
They have ants and things, huge things, you know, like that. They're crawling around. It's very, you'd like it actually.
Creepy crawlies.
Who are some of your? We're dedicating this week of shows to famous composers. Yesterday it was Duke Ellington.
Yeah.
Today it's Harold Arlen. Who are some of your favorite non-rock composers?
When I started out playing the guitar, I wanted to be Tal Farlow. I don't know if you've heard of him. He was a guitar player. And do you know him?
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh,
good.
wonderful.
He retired, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He married a rich lady, I think.
Well,
But I wanted to be like...
That's a good reason to retire.
But I like people like Cole Porter and Noel Coward. Writes really tight songs.
Are you people much aware of people like Rodgers and Hammerstein?
Of course.
And Rodgers and Hart?
Yeah, we see the movies on TV at Christmas all the time. Oh, but they write some great songs. Old Jed's Dead from Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good song. La, 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 la. And San Francisco's good. Great song.
Do you,
have you heard the Jeanette MacDonald version?
No, not
San
that one, yes.
Francisco.
Judy Garland's
great song.
comedy.
That's from another picture.
Yeah.
You wrote, I'm told, a rock opera for British television.
Yeah, there's all this talk about...
Was that before Tommy or before the...
Well, I was commissioned to write this thing by Granada Television. It's a little station in Manchester, England. And they said, you know, we'd like you to write a rock opera. I said, thank you very much. How much am I going to be paid? They said, nothing. I said, all right, I'll do it. And 2 years later, I came up with an album, and that was it. The show didn't go on.
Are you usually that difficult to deal with in financial
I'm
matters?
terrible. Absolutely dreadful.
Are you a poor businessman, really?
Yeah, look at this suit.
Julie liked it.
I love your suit. I think we look like ice cream flavors,
Yeah.
kind of like 31 flavors. Strawberry in your shirt.
Oh, yeah.
Are you into movies? Are you a movie fan, Ray?
Oh, yeah. I like films.
What have you seen
Old
lately
movies.
that you like? Oh, old movies.
Yeah.
Tell me about some of those.
You know, going to Los Angeles and on tour in America, we see lots of the old ones. Cagney movies and the Bogart films. All those are great. You know, I love California and all the film. I wouldn't like to live there, though. I think
Why not? Why
I
wouldn't
wouldn't
you
be
like
very
it?
productive there.
Because of the climate, and you'll fall into a different...
Yeah, I get fat.
different way
Strawberry
of life.
milkshakes and hamburgers and things I eat.
That's
Ooh.
all right for a while, but...
Yeah.
if we
I
get
like
to-
Philadelphia, though, because it's spread out. There aren't so many people here. It's really good.
For a while, we were closed.
Oh, really?
When the storm...
Is this the place W.C. Fields?
That's the
didn't want to
joke.
come?
Yeah. He said, I came to Philadelphia one time, it was closed.
That's
but,
right.
but we had a storm recently, and boy, I had a feeling we were closed for a while there. The next tune that you're going to do, oddly enough, is about movies. Is that true?
Yeah, it's a song called Celluloid Heroes. I was walking down Hollywood Boulevard, as all the tourists do, and, you know, I felt that they had sort of lost a lot of prestige because, you know, the 30s and the 40s, they were the people, you know, they were untouchable.
Mm-hmm.
Now I think stars are there because they're accessible, and they're like people next door. You can touch them. And I was walking
You liked
down,
it better the other way.
Well, I don't know. They had their time, and sometimes it goes round again, like the cycle in rock music.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's pretty for pretty faces, good faces, and you get the rugged look, and
Now
then you
it's-
get
now it's
people like
people
me.
faces.
You get people like me, which are nowhere.
Anyway, this deal is called Celluloid Heroes, and
Yeah.
it features the Kinks.
Okay.
Dave, thank you.
Well, the style might have changed in 19 years, but the theme of the woman walking out is still the same.
And it's the same
And
jacket.
it's the same jacket.
Must be the suit.
Is women walking out one of the themes that's close to your heart? or-
Yes, well, people always walk out.
Yes, they do. Oh, do they? Oh.
No, it's, that particular character, it's a character, right? It's nothing to do with me.
The videos are very good. You've always had good videos, haven't you? Do you think that's important?
I think like everybody else who started in pop music, and a few of the Beatles went to art school, I went to art school. I think there's a visual side to my music. Songs like Waterloo Sunset and Sunny Afternoon conjure up a sort of a visual, a picture.
You've been conjuring up a few visual things. Are they worth showing yet, or shall we wait till the end of the programme? You've been sketching.
Well, I've got a really horrible picture of Frank.
Can we? All right, we'll save it.
I'm trying to do a good
He might
one
not
of you.
speak to you again otherwise.
Don't destroy me until we finish the programme.
Yes, we'll wait till so you can speak to you for the rest of the programme anyway. What about those two concept albums that I know you, a few years ago were very close to your heart? There was the Village Green Preservation Society
That's right.
and there was Arthur. What's happened to those
That was
two?
my Nazi album. It's the Village Green Preservation Society was at a time when I couldn't tour America. We had a ban imposed on the band, and we couldn't tour there for 3 years.
Why
So
was
I sort of, I forget, a minor
detail.
fight backstage, I think. And I sort of went back and wrote songs about the past and reflective sort of songs rather than rock and roll songs. And Arthur was an LP that was commissioned by a TV company. They wanted to do a sort of rock opera.
They were both very sort of theatrical things. You haven't actually written a proper rock opera yet. I keep expecting you to, but you haven't.
I think all the good ones have been written. I mean, all the good operas have been written.
It's a bit defeatist.
Well, no, I think, well, it's not defeatist. I think it's very difficult to combine theatre with rock music.
Well, you have tried it, so I suppose...
I've tried it, and I'll keep trying, but it's very, very hard to combine the two.
And you've got a film project on at the moment, so we'll talk about that in a minute.
OK.
Get Frank to talk to you about that.
Yes, why not?
You're starting to stir it like some...
Monday on
Like ad records, and they play them, and you say, oh, that's a good idea, we'll release it, and then they stop playing them, so it's nothing to go by. But we tour there a lot. It's the same old story. Where we tour, we sell records.
What do the Americans like about you? I've always had this image of the sort of imported Englishness of the group as being the main attraction.
It's my hair, right?
Your hair?
No, I don't know. Who knows what people, you know, I think they like... They used to like us because they thought we were quaint, you know, English. I think that's dying out now. And I think it's more, they listen to our music. And it's not so much the Englishness anymore.
You have stuck to those themes, haven't you? Themes about English class consciousness and suburbia.
Not consciously. I try not to think about it. But it comes out because it's, you know, subjective in my work.
Sounding good. You've been
I've been doing a lot of Radio 4.
Who do you think you're writing for now, then? What sort of people?
My uncle.
And apart from your uncle?
No, I think... our audience is... No, it's a joke. The audiences range from like 14, 15 to 30, 35.
In both countries?
Yeah. We did a couple of gigs here early this year, sort of quietly, nobody knew about. And it was the same sort of audience. We had sort of... Mixed, yeah, and the people sitting at the back.
Those are the kind of people who buy your records. Whose records do you buy then? Do you actually go to record shops?
I've got Purple Rain, and I've got Lloyd Cole. I must be honest, if it's a good cover, I buy it.
What do you like about Lloyd Cole?
His hair.
His hair again? And his uncle?
I don't know, he reminds me of my uncle.
Ray, we've had several people on the series so far who've been in the pop music business for over 20 years. The Who, Status Quo, Jimmy Page. You've done the same, but without managing... Well, you've managed to survive. Without success, yes, apart from that. And a lot of hairstyles. But without actually having to stop playing or the band breaking up now. What is the secret? How have you lasted so long?
I like writing. Only joking apart, I mean, I'm being very flippant today. But I think it's because I look to my writing. And we don't have one style. We vary our style a lot. And people kind of get entertained by it.
There's someone who's written a book about you recently, which is apparently an authorised biography by John Savage. I understand you don't like that book. It misrepresents you.
No, I thought the book I really like is The Sound and the Fury that was done by a guy called... I forget his name now, but I thought of calling our album that instead of Word of Mouth, which it is called.
Yeah.
I thought of saying the new Kinks album, The Sound and the Fury, the album, because it's a load of crap.
We're going to see an example of that.
Okay.
A new single, Do It Again.
What, crap?
Directed by your music, crap or not.
Oh, it's wonderful.
Directed by Julian Temple. Why didn't you direct it? You've been
because I don't like. Because I just done a film. I prefer when I'm performing to have somebody else direct it.
Well, let's see that anyway. This is a look at the Kinks, featuring Okay, this is it.
Well, we all know about the great rock groups of the 60s who've recently gone back on the road, like the Who and the Rolling Stones, for example. But one of the top bands from that golden decade has never actually stopped touring. I'm talking, of course, about the Kinks, whose lead singer, Ray Davies, will be talking to us in a moment. But for anyone too young to remember, this is what the Kinks sounded like 25 years ago.
I was a lonely soul. I had nobody till I met you.
Wow, one of the greats. Ray Davies, welcome.
Hi, it's nice to be here.
You were just saying that's actually one of the great pop classics, that one. How long did it take you to write?
10 minutes on the tube.
That's outrageous.
Yeah, well...
That's actually
It
not
only
fair,
takes 10
either.
minutes on the tube, anything does.
10 minutes on the tube?
Yep.
What, do you remember, you were sitting on the tube and suddenly a tune
I was
came?
going to the session and I had to make a record, a follow-up, because we
Right.
had 2 #1 records, and they had the session books, and I thought, what can I do today? And I started writing that.
I suppose tired of waiting might
Tired
be...
of waiting, yeah.
might be appropriate, yeah.
Simple.
Just to recap, we saw you actually on the Brit Pop Awards.
Oh, yeah.
We've had Jonathan King bouncing on and off the show recently.
Poor old Jonathan.
Poor old Jonathan. In your view, a success the show, or...?
I think Jonathan's good. I think he did a great job.
Mm.
It's very difficult to pull all those people together, and everybody had respect for... All the artists had a lot of respect for Jonathan, otherwise they wouldn't have done it, and went through what they went through.
Isn't it funny? Because, I mean, in fairness, he himself would admit he's a pretty fierce critic on occasions.
Oh, he's terrible.
Has he slagged you off?
Oh, terrible. He's awful. But you know, he's a good guy, and he's good energy, and I think it's good that he's around, because there are very few people around now who've got the guts to go out and say what they think.
Well, we mustn't be too polite about him, because he does tend to get big-headed.
Well, of course he is.
You said something rather odd, right? I didn't know how to interpret it at the awards ceremony, about being an international group, and then you linked it with Britain, and you hinted that you were international everywhere, but that doesn't necessarily make you popular in Britain.
Well, I get in a cab, because I toured America mostly, I get in a cab, and they say, "Hey, Ray, how are you?" It's, you're still together, you know. It's because you can be famous somewhere else.
Yeah.
And it's because you focus on one part of the world that people think you're finished somewhere else. And that's the way it is.
I mean, the fact of life is that we in introducing you, played a song from, what, 25 years ago?
People expect me to walk in black and white, you know.
And you looked at your hairstyle, you didn't like it, and I said, that's the old Parker.
This is a better wig.
Ray, we'll chat again. Let's see the 1990 Kinks in action, shall we?
Let's take a look at the Kinks' latest single. It's from their current album, UK Jive. Hello and welcome back. And of course, our very special guest this morning is Ray Davies. Good morning, Ray. Ta-da! Yeah. Now, I was wanting to ask you about this. It's almost like a song for Europe, isn't it? It's the B-side of your... It's the B-side of your new single.
Right.
Down All the Days.
Well, it's a double A-side, the whole
double
single is a double A-side package. Right. Yeah, this Down All the Days to 1992 was a song on the album, and taken out of context with the album, which is not all pro-European, but this particular song is. And it's a very optimistic song for me.
Do you feel that we should be all coming together now? With 1992 happening, that barriers should be coming down?
Well, I think it's a good idea. I just don't want each country to blend into the other country so that you can get French bread in Scotland and haggis in Germany, you know. I think that would be wrong.
Do you get inspiration, though, from events that are happening currently, like the Berlin Wall coming down, for example? Do you sort of put that into your songwriting, or where does it come from?
Yeah, political issues always interest me, and they motivate me to write songs. And I mix that up. It's a very complicated thing when I write a song. That's why our albums tend to be sort of mixtures of political issues and personal things, and UK Jive is sort of a mixture of all that.
You were saying earlier on that it took 10 minutes to write a song. That was back in the 60s. Does it still take you 10 minutes, or does it take a bit longer than that?
There's a song on UK Jive called Now and Then, which took 10 years to write. So
10 years?
It does, yeah. There were 2 lines I couldn't get. And all of a sudden I was in a pub in Dublin and they just came.
As they would.
Well, it was after 3 pints of water.
Now, you're actually in the US Hall of Fame, along with The Who and Simon and Garfunkel. There's yourself.
And a few others, yeah.
Do awards mean a lot to you? Do you get a lot of satisfaction out of that?
We've never really won an award. And the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is a new thing that's been, it's 4 years old. And they're building this big museum in Cleveland. and presumably they're going to stuff me when I go and put me in there. But that's the idea, is to celebrate rock and roll as a major, you know, force in influencing culture. And the Americans are very proud of rock and roll because they started it.
Do you think they're prouder of it than we are over here?
We treat it differently here. To them it's a major, you know, to them it's like Chrysler cars, a Ford car, it's all associated with the same thing. It's a big cultural thing. Here it's more pop, and it's fashion here.
It is, that's right. But do you think they take it more seriously than we do then?
They don't take it more seriously, they just enjoy it. And like all things in America, they applaud success. And a band like the Kinks, we go out there and play concerts, and people come to see all our new songs and our old songs. They see us as an overall, me as a writer, rather than just my latest record. They like to see the whole catalogue.
Yeah, in Britain we tend to be a bit shy of success sometimes, don't we? Don't celebrating it enough, perhaps.
Yeah.
But it's been great talking to you. Stay with us.
Yeah.
Stay with us, and we'll talk to you lots more. Thank you for the moment.
Good.
Thank you for the moment.
Good. Tension between people who are related, but that sometimes helps music. And
of course, it wouldn't be so bad if sometimes I could get a word in edgeways. No, it's not. You know, it's not always. It's not that bad, really. Just when we're.
I think what happened, it's a cheap, cheap. It's an easy shot to get press and publicity with. And let's face it, people love that. They love to read about conflict. They love to read, you know, what's going on inside, and insider's information.
All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. Honestly, I think that exchange between Dave and Ray there was pretty genuine. I don't think they're acting. And interestingly, they broke up. The band finally disbanded not a couple of months after that interview aired. So clearly they were not getting on well at that time. And they have been, even though there's been talks of a reunion since then, it's never quite happened for one reason or another. So anyway, we're going to start our journey in 1965 with the single Set Me Free. I'm going to skip over the early kind of You Really Got Me, All of the Day and All the Night kind of proto-punk period. I'm just going to skip over that because we don't have that much time. You know, given that on YouTube, you know, a maximum this can be like a 4-hour stream, okay? So, and I need to pack it all in. So I'm going to skip over that early period. All you need to know is they had some catchy, power chord driven, 3-note kind of all of the day and all of the night. Da-din, da-din, da-da-da-da-da. I mean, you know those songs. And, you know, that was probably their most commercially successful stuff as a singles act, okay? But in 1965, they started to try to become kind of softer, more introspective sounding, and almost more, I hesitate to say like more Beatlesy, but certainly a less kind of raw sound, less raunchy than they were in their early days. And Set Me Free, I think, is a pivotal turning point in the general Kinks sound. It came out in May 1965. Let's take it away.
Set me free, little girl. All you gotta do is set me free, little girl. You know you can do it if you try. All you gotta do is set me free, free, free. Set me free, little girl. All you gotta do is set me free, little girl. You know you can do it if you try. All you gotta do is set me free, 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 free. I don't want no one if I can't have you to myself. I don't need nobody else. So if I can't have you to myself, set me free, set me free, oh set me free, little girl. set me free, little girl. You know you can do it if you try. All you gotta do is set me free, 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 free. I don't want no one if I can't have you to myself. I don't need nobody else. So if I can't have you to myself, set me free, set me free, oh set me free, little girl. All you gotta do is set me free, little girl. You know you can do it if you try. All you gotta do is set me free, 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 set me free. Oh, set me free.
All right, that was Set Me Free. Now, they didn't completely abandon that kind of raw side of them straight away. And I wanted to give you a kind of sense of the band in transition. And I've gone to a lesser known kind of, I guess it was a B-side called Sitting on My Sofa. This was the B-side to one of their more kind of jaunty pastiche tracks, dedicated follower of fashion, which is a really fun character study, I guess. And Sitting on My Sofa was the B-side, and you can get a sense of that rawer side of the band. Now, there's a bit of the old Dave Davis fuzz in there still as well. And, you know, Ray sings with a slightly kind of coarser voice than he would do later. What's interesting about Sitting on My Sofa, though, is that, I mean, what I've been trying to like place, like, what are the influences of the Kinks, like the non-music influences? And I really believe that he was influenced by John Osborne, the playwright who wrote things like he wrote a play called The Entertainer, which is a play about a music hall act in the dying days of music hall. Music hall was something that Ray Davis was obsessed with as well. His most famous play, John Osborne, was Look Back in Anger, which is about post-war kind of austerity Britain, angry young man who's just raging against the world, hates what's happened to his country, lamenting the kind of loss of the empire, lamenting kind of working class, kind of a resentment against middle class aspirations and things like that. And one of the kind of revolutionary things about Osborne's plays and the whole kind of kitchen sink British drama thing that happened in the mid 50s, 1956, 1957, 1958, that sort of period, is that they brought the kind of they made the stage a lot more domestic. They brought it inside the living room, or literally inside the kitchen, hence kitchen sink. And I just find it interesting that they've got this song here, Sitting on My Sofa. You're kind of, this isn't like out in the big arena. It's not like an outlandish landscape. It's literally like in somebody's sitting room on a sofa with a TV set, and the TV set is always seen as kind of rotting the mind in Davis's world. So yeah, Sitting on My Sofa.
Sitting on my sofa.
Okay, so the real transition album for the Kinks was called Face to Face. And in fact, one of the stories was that Ray Davies was furious with the psychedelic cover of the album, because if you have a look at the album, it really looks like it came out in 1966. And he didn't like that. He didn't want a psychedelic cover, and he fought with the record label over it, but, you know, he didn't get his own way or whatever. But he was vocally displeased, let's just say, with the cover. And you get a kind of marked uptick in maturity on the songs of Face to Face. He gets even more socially conscious, and so some of the songwriting gets more personal as well. And one of the songs I have picked out is the second track on the album, I think it's the second track, called Rosie, Won't You Please Come Home. Now, Rosie was one of Ray's older sisters. They had 6 sisters. One of them died when they were young. I think she died at the age of 13 or something like that. And she will crop up in a later song, Come Dancing. But Rosie, she met this chap, and they moved to Australia together. And let me just read you. Let me just pull this up a minute. I'll just read you what it says on the Wikipedia entry for this song. Rosie, Won't You Please Come Home is a song by the British rock band The Kinks. Rosie, Won't You Please Come Home was inspired mainly by Rosie Davis, the sister of Ray and Dave Davis. She, along with her husband, Arthur Anning, remember that name, Arthur, right, had moved to Australia in 1964, which devastated Ray to a great extent. On the day that they moved, Ray Davies broke down on the beach after a gig. I started screaming. A part of my family had left, possibly forever. I collapsed in a heap on the sandy beach and wept like a pathetic child, Davis said of the incident. Dave Davis added, all of a sudden, the fact that they were really leaving finally hit Ray. He ran to the sea and started screaming and crying. Rosie and Arthur's departure later inspired the premise for the Kinks' 1969 concept album, Arthur, or The Decline and Fall of the British Empire. So the Arthur in the title was directly inspired by his brother-in-law, Arthur Anning, and his devastation at the fact that his sister was leaving to move to Australia. So you can see that, like, these things are really important to him. Like, he's very driven by home, the idea of this place and this time being his home, and he doesn't want to let these things go. So this is kind of a devastating song. So let's listen to it.
Rosie, won't you please come home? Mama don't know where you've been. Rosie, won't you please come home? Your room's clean and no one's in it. My Rosie, how I miss you. You are all the world to me. Take a look and see if you like it. If you like it, please come back. Rosie, won't you please come home? Since you joined the upper process, you don't know us anymore. Live and let your troubles pass. Rosie, Rosie, where at? Tell me if you don't want to come back. I will sacrifice all I have to have a happy home once more. Rosie, won't you please come home? 2 long years have passed away since you tried to change your life. Christmas wasn't quite the same. Rosie, Rosie, got any answers? You are miles across back? Oh, Rosie, will you please come back? Oh, Rosie, won't you please come back?
See what I mean about that thunder and lightning sound effect, but it's a good song. All right, so now, almost the opposite. Something else by the Kinks, I would say, is the album at which the Kinks in their, the Kinks as we know them and love them, as the quintessentially English, socially conscious, fully formed band, arrive on something else, in my opinion. It's got a little hint of psychedelia in there due to the harpsichord, right? But unlike Face to Face, you never feel like this is the Kinks trying to be like relevant or contemporary or something. There's none of that at all. I have chosen one of the more famous songs from the album to highlight, David Watts, which is this song about this guy who's just like, he's the head boy, he's the captain of the school team, all the girls love him, all the boys love him. He's kind of a stud, like everybody wants to be him, Everybody had a person like this in their school, in their year group. I'm still mates with David Watts from my school. I mean, if you're listening, you know who you are. Everybody knows who the David Watts was in their class, right? And everybody knows people like this. And one of the things that I think really sets Davis apart as a songwriter from a lot of the other people is that he is self-aware to know that he wasn't David Watts. He's not the cool kid. He's probably the bullied kid. He's probably the kid who's out on the outside looking in, right? Now, I have no idea what Paul McCartney was like in school, but you watch footage of the Beatles and it's clear that at some level, Paul McCartney is David Watts, right? So he writes from the perspective of David Watts a lot of the time. Whereas Davis was never that kid, right? He was never the popular kid. He was never the one who all the girls loved. And how can I put this? Davis has got the... he's daring enough and he's kind of self-effacing enough in a way to go into this kind of slightly uncomfortable material. Like, it's a little bit embarrassing to admit that you're not David Watt. It's a little bit kind of, it's a kind of social awkwardness to it all. And he's just willing to go there where so many other people aren't. Now, some critics have claimed that David Watts has got a kind of homoerotic element. I've seen one reading of the song that David Watts was somebody in Dave Davis's class who kind of liked Dave and Ray was a bit jealous. Which is, I mean, you can, whatever the real story is, there's something really interesting about writing this song, drawing attention to the social hierarchy in school, drawing attention to the fact that you weren't him. I love this stuff. This is one of the reasons I love the Kinks, is because they do this sort of thing. Nobody else does it. So yeah, I hope you enjoy David Watts, famously, of course, covered by The Jam much later on.
Nice and smooth.
Champagne, and I have never met the Queen, and I wish I could have all he has got, and I wish I could be like David.
Wish I could be like. Wish I could be like. Wish I, wish I, wish I, wish I, wish I.
All right, another song on something else by the Kinks that I wanted to highlight was Situation Vacant. Situation Vacant. And, this has got that harpsichord I mentioned. It's got really kind of bittersweet sound to it because it's about this couple who are actually doing quite well. They kind of get on. And they've got this mother-in-law. The fella has got a mother-in-law who wanted something else for them. That she wanted something like better for them or whatever. And so he's pressured into giving up his job. And how can I put it? Like, I was talking about like kitchen sink rock. I mean, this is very kitchen sink. Susie and Johnny were happy. They earned enough to pay the rent. But Johnny's mother-in-law had too much ambition, and this made Johnny very upset. And literally it goes through this guy giving up this job that he'd always had, being able to pay the rent and a little place for themselves. And by the end of the song, they're scrimping and saving, they go broke, and basically Johnny runs out of money, and he's got nowhere to go, and he's in debt, and then, of course, Susie leaves him, and the mother-in-law's happy. I mean, it's just fucking devastating material. Like, it's just... And, again, people talk... Like, I don't know why people are always trying to... It's because they were around at the same time. But this shit doesn't happen in Beatles songs. And it doesn't happen on Who songs. And it doesn't happen on Rolling Stones songs. This stuff is in a league of its own in terms of where he's going with it. And the sorts of people he's talking about. So, yeah, I mean, I think this is just indicative of... Oh, remember, this is just a random album track from something else by the Kinks. I could have picked any of the songs, but I wanted you to listen to this one.
Susie and Johnny were happy, enough to pay the rent. But Johnny's mother-in-law had too much ambition, and this made Johnny very upset. So to keep his little mama satisfied, he went and bought the weekly classified. All for peace and quiet's sake, Johnny gave up his position just to please his mother-in-law. And so he left the job where he'd been all his life. He left and turned his back on the door. Now he's looking at the situation's vacant. Situation's vacant. Just to keep his little mama satisfied, he went and bought the weekly classified. Sort of less plush residence. But poor Susie and Johnny had to skimp and scrape just to help to pay the weekly rent. So to keep his little mama satisfied, he went and bought the weekly classified. All for peace and quiet's sake. Johnny's got no money, got nowhere to go. Johnny's in a Susie's separated, living with her mom, little mama satisfied.
All right, so I mentioned earlier on that they've got one song that is a little bit Beatles-ish. The last time, I would say, the Kinks were trying to like sound contemporary or whatever, and that is the single Wonder Boy from 1968. I've actually found a clip of them on Top of the Pops in 1968, which is interesting considering they'd later have a song called Top of the Pops on the Lola album. And you can see what I mean. That it's a very Beatles-y sort of song. I think the last time the Kinks would ever really sound like any of their contemporaries. The reason I put this in here is because when I was kind of listening back, I was really bugged. Like, what? This song, why does it sound so familiar? And then it dawned on me that basically Oasis and Noel Gallagher lift the entire... There's a bit in the song which is literally lifted directly in She's Electric. Like the lyrics, the tune, the whole thing. You see if you can spot it. All right, this is Wonder Boy.
Our program right now, the Kinks. Now this group has been headed up by Ray Davies and Dave Davies, but they've gone their separate ways. We'd like you to look in right now with a thing called Wonder Boy. Ray Davies and Dave and the Kinks. The Kinks with Wonder Boy.
All right, so we've reached their masterpiece, Village Green. Last time I featured Big Sky, and I think I featured Do You Remember Walter? I want to, again, I mean, the famous tracks from this album are the title track, The Kinks Are the Village Green Preservation Society, and possibly the next best known track is Picture Book. Right, those are the two big ones. I'm not going to play those ones. You can listen to those in your own time. You should listen to the whole album in your own time, to be honest. And also the last of the Steam Powered Train. There's another brilliant reactionary song that you could listen to about an old steam train that's been retired and now lives in a museum. I mean, just talk about being one of us or whatever. But I wanted to feature lesser known songs from this album, and There's one of them I made a video to, which is the actual track Village Green. So not the title track. There's another song on the album called Village Green. And I had some fun with this and made a video, put it to a bit of Trumpton. So hope you enjoy it.
Far from all the sort of noise of the city, there's a village green. Oh, it's been a long time since I last set eyes on the church with the steeple down by the village green. 'Twas there I met a girl called Daisy and kissed her by the old oak tree. Although I loved my Daisy, I sought fame, and so I left the village green. I miss the village green, and all the simple people. I miss the village green, the church, the clock, the steeple. I miss the morning dew, fresh air and Sunday school. And now all the houses are rare antiquities. American tourists flock to see the village green. They snap their photographs and say, "God darn it, isn't it a pretty scene?" And Daisy's married Tom, the grocer boy, and now he owns a grocery. I miss the village green and all the simple people. I miss the village green, the church, the clock, the steeple. I miss the morning dew, fresh air and Sunday school. And I will return there, and I'll see Daisy, and we'll sip tea, laugh, and talk about the village green. We will laugh and talk about the village green.
Brilliant song, brilliant. All right, so another. Do you remember how I was saying like Davis is willing to go into kind of areas where a lot of songwriters won't because they're too like they want to put themselves forward as cool or whatever. Davis just doesn't care about anything like that. And I wanted to showcase a track where you saw Ray Davis, the storyteller, but also Ray Davis telling a really embarrassing story about something that happened to him. And that is the track All of My Friends Were There, which is on Village Green. And this is a song about a time where he all of his friends are gathered to watch him perform on stage, and he got ill, or there's some reason where he couldn't make it, and basically they're all standing there, and he couldn't go on stage because he was sick or whatever. And obviously, like, this is a mortifying, embarrassing moment, and it's the fact that he's willing to share this with you, and you're getting to like relive this really embarrassing moment with him is I don't know, I think it's just extraordinary. I also think that this track shows off a lot of the core strengths of Ray as a songwriter. So let's take a listen.
My big day, it was the biggest day of my life. It was the summit of my long career, but I felt so down and I drunk too much beer. The management said that I shouldn't appear. I walked out onto the stage and started to speak. The first night I'd missed for a couple of years. I explained to the crowd and they started to cheer. And just when I wanted no one to be there, all of my friends were there. Not just my friends, but their best friends too. All of my friends were there to stand and stare, say what they may. All of their friends need not stand. Those who laughed were not friends anyway. days went by. I walked around dressed in a disguise. I wore a moustache and I parted my hair, and gave the impression that I did not care. But oh, the embarrassment, oh, the despair. Came the day, helped with a few large glasses of gin. I nervously mounted the stage once again, got through my performance and no one complained. Thank God I could go back to normal again. I went to that old cafe where I had been in much happier days, and all of my friends were there, and no one cared, say what they may. All of my friends were there, not just my friends, but their best friends too. All of my friends are there, now I don't care.
Now, sorry to linger on Village Green, but it is their best known and probably best album. Certainly their highest rated and best selling album ever, so I am going to linger on it a little bit. I wanted to play the song People Take Pictures of Each Other. It goes back to what I was talking about earlier on. The fact that people aren't living authentically. People are now treating the Village Green or treating their own lives as a kind of tourist experience. So you're never actually experiencing the thing itself, but an ersatz postmodern version of it. And the reason I've highlighted this track is because there's an existential dread in the song. And he literally... I mean, there's a moment in the song where he says, I don't want to see the picture of me from years ago. Like, stop showing me the stuff. I can't bear to look at it because I want to experience something now, in the here and now. And I want it to be real, and I want it to be authentic. And I want it to be living and not a fossil, not a museum piece. And this is the real heart of the kind of... The Village Green is not a it is nostalgia drenched as an album, but it's also a really sad album about the fact that all of these dying traditions and all of these dying things are around him, and he wants them to live. He doesn't want them to die. He doesn't want them to be fossilized and made into a museum piece. He wants them to live and breathe in the here and now. And this I think is the thing that is kind of like truly reactionary, if you want, because a reactionary doesn't just want things to be lost. He wants them to live and breathe again. So, yeah, it's not just romantic yearning for a lost past or nostalgia. It's something more.
People take pictures of the summer, just in case someone thought they had missed it, and to prove that it really existed. Fathers take pictures of the mothers, and the sisters take pictures of brothers, just to show that they love one another. You can't picture love that you took from me when we were young and the world was free. Pictures of things as they used to be. Don't show me no more, please. People take pictures of each other just to prove that they really existed. Just to prove that they really existed. People take pictures of each other, and a moment can last them forever. All the time when they matter to someone. lasted forever. And the time when they mattered to someone. Picture of me when I was just 3, sat with mama by the old oak tree. How I love things as they used to be. Don't show me no more, please. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la.
Okay, I'm going to move on from Village Green now. What an album that is. To another brilliant album. Now, last time I featured 3 tracks from Arthur, so this time it's just going to be the one. And I've chosen Victoria. Again, a lot of people think Victoria is a piss take. A lot of people think Victoria is a kind of satirical lamentation of the Victorian Empire or something. I do not think, knowing what we know of Ray, that this is exactly how the song was meant to go. I think that it was also intended to be a celebration of Victoria and the Victorian era, and also a celebration of the world that Arthur was born into. Don't forget, it's a concept album about this guy Arthur, modelled on his brother-in-law, and he wanted to, like he said in the interviews, he wanted to celebrate this. So now I had a look around, and bafflingly, nobody has ever made a video for Victoria. So I thought I'd do the honours, and I've put together some visuals for this. So let's have a little listen.
Life was clean, sex was bad, called obscene.
All right, skipping along now, I do want to get to the mid-70s and the later, lesser-known material. So I'm going to be moving fairly briskly now. I'm just going to play one track from Lola and one track from Muswell Hillbillies. The track I'm going to play from Lola is Denmark Street, which is the story of how this character gets in the kind of, gets his record contract and gets into the music business, into the music industry. In many of the interviews, Ray has said that he always hated dealing with the business side of the music business. He's like he's a songwriter, he's an artist. He doesn't want to have to bother with contracts and managers and shit like this, but obviously they have to be dealt with. And the whole album is basically him dealing with this. One of the strange and ironic things is that Lola, the title track, is now they're trying to like brand it as an LGBT anthem and like that Ray Davies is this hero for gay rights or something. This is not the context of the song. If you listen to it, it's a sleazy encounter in Soho that this guy who's trying to get into the music industry has, one night. It's not a celebration of LGBT rights. It is intended to be part of this sordid scene, this seedy little scene, in and around Carnaby Street that existed, in swinging London of the period. But the track I've chosen to highlight is Denmark Street, as I said, which also has, you can see that Ray now really has his powers as a songwriter together. Now, in the context of the album, this is not a single. This is just an album track telling the story of how this guy got into the business. And it's a knockout. It's a brilliant song, and the narrative strength and the kind of character study, the caricature element of it is really evocative as well. You're just there. You're there back in Denmark Street. Been to Denmark Street many times myself, of course, because I used to work in Soho. Unfortunately, the Denmark Street of the mid-60s is long gone. Long gone. Right, so last week I wanted to highlight, 20th Century Man, which I wasn't able to play. If you haven't heard that song, you must listen to it because it's absolutely brilliant and maybe the most prescient Kinks song for today, for 2023, that there is. I also played Acute Schizophrenia Blues, and I played Here Come the People in Grey. This time I wanted to highlight the the more kind of Americana side of the album, because the whole album is about the fact that people living in Muswell Hill in London were looking to America for inspiration. They were looking over there because life had become so miserable and so depressing and so dreary and so like English society was falling apart so rapidly that basically they had no choice but to watch TV and to want to be like those Americans over there. So the whole idea of the Muswell Hillbillies is this whole idea of like these London working class lads looking to America for inspiration, but also being sad about the fact that they're having to do this because obviously they're not American and he wants to be British, and he wants to celebrate England. Anyway, this is the song Holloway Jail, which is about this character who has a girlfriend that goes to Holloway prison. So let's take it away.
They took my baby to Holloway jail. They took my baby down Holloway jail. She was a lady when she went in. Now she's in jail and is giving me hell.
All right, so I'm gonna skip over Everybody's in Showbiz. Probably the song to listen to from that album is Celluloid Heroes. There's a few good songs on there. It's not a bad album. I actually think that you can go from Muswell Hillbillies to Everybody's in Showbiz, and they don't it's not quite as good an album, but I don't think they missed that much of a beat, you know. It's not like there's this kind of cataclysmic falling off a cliff that everybody talks about. I think Everybody's in Showbiz is a decent album, but in the interest of time, I wanted to highlight a couple of songs from Preservation Act. Now, there's two albums, Preservation Act 1 and Preservation Act 2. Preservation Act 1, I played a track from it last week. That is typically seen as the stronger of the two albums because it's got this kind of narrative, which I'll tell you about in a moment. And in Act 1, it's much more kind of loosely themed, right? There's just a kind of bunch of songs around this general theme, and you're meeting the characters, and he's kind of setting up like it's just kind of place setting. Whereas Act 2 is a lot more narrative driven, and it's got these spoken word dialogue pieces, which I know critics always hate, and lots of people don't want to hear like spoken word pieces. You know, like when Bowie does the spoken word bits on Diamond Dogs, for example, you know, some people don't like this sort of thing. And for that reason, Preservation Act 2 is just hated. It's just given like 1 star out of 5, you know, one of the worst albums ever made, blah, blah, blah. Like, people really hate it. Like, oh, for a major act like the Kinks, this is like, oh, they didn't just fall off, they fell off all the way. And I just think that it's not true, right? It, like, I mean, there are people who champion this album. I bought a number of Kinks books, and one of them has an appendix at the back where they list their favourite albums. And the author of the book, who's obviously, you know, a Kinks aficionado, put Preservation Act 2 as number 4 on that list. You know, I kind of joked around on Twitter saying, you know, I might devote my life to getting people to appreciate Preservation Act 2 as the great lost album. But then I discovered that actually to Kinks fans, Preservation Act 2 is kind of a well-known commodity. Like, they actually think it's a really good piece of work. Rock critics hated it. The public stayed away. They didn't. Like, nobody bought this album. It's probably the least known of all the Kinks records. And let me just explain the basic plot, because the Preservation Act is set in the Village Green. It's set in the Village Green from the Village Green Preservation Society. And basically, an evil capitalist called Mr. Flash comes and he starts dismantling the Village Green. He starts selling off the various bits of it. And the Village Green experiences basically the equivalent of the scouring of the Shire, you know, from Lord of the Rings, the scouring of the Shire. And this is devastating. Obviously, we love the Village Green. We want to save Trumpton. And this bastard, Mr. Flash, who is he's basically got a background as a second-hand car salesman. He's a spiv, right? He's a spiv and a scumbag and a kind of a bit of a wide boy, right? Kind of Alan Sugar type, basically. But Alan Sugar as a dictator, if that makes any sense, okay? So, Mr. Flash is an evil capitalist dictator. But then, as the kind of Village Green is going to wreck and ruin, he is challenged, Mr. Flash is challenged by another character called Mr. Black. And Mr. Black basically is a Cromwellian figure. He's a Puritan. He is not like, a lot of critics just mistake him for like a socialist. He's not a socialist. He comes as Carlyle's cleansing fire on this, okay? Clearly encoded as the religious right, if you want to put it that way. And Ray does this very interesting thing on the album where you start off hating Mr. Flash, but by the end of the album, he's kind of developed sympathy for him, which reminds me a lot of Shakespeare's Richard II, believe it or not, because that's what happens. Like Richard II, you're like, oh, is this awful king? Definitely deserves to be overthrown. But then when he is, you start to feel sorry, like you see the human side. So Davis is now like, you know, this is pretty complex stuff for a rock album, you know. And I can understand like a rock critic, you know, in 1975, don't know what else was out that year, but he's listening to like, you know, Ramones or whatever. Like he's listening to the latest, greatest thing. Oh, here's this old 60s act and they're doing, a rock opera about a capitalist versus a weird Puritan. It's set in the village green. Oh, clearly Ray Davies has disappeared up his own arse. I can't stand this shit. F. 0 out of 10. Right off. Kinks have lost it. Signed Melody Maker. Don't watch this crap old band. Enemy. You know, I can understand why it might happen, but I actually think that when you really listen to Preservation Act, both parts of it, there's some good songs in there. Act 1's got some really good songs. The Sweet Lady Genevieve being one of the standouts. But, I mean, listen to the band. They're tight. The songwriting's good. So I'm going to highlight 2 tracks. And I play them back to back because I've talked for quite a long time. He's Evil is a song about Mr. Flash as sung by, I think, the supporters of Mr. Black. And then Shepherds of the Nation is a song by Mr. Black and his followers. These kind of Puritans who want to clear out the Mr. Flashes of this world. Very interesting. And Ray is kind of ambiguous. He's like, yeah, you can understand why Mr. Black comes, but he's not quite up for the... He's not quite like, you know, he is, after all, a 60s boomer. Not sure if I want Mr. Black coming and locking up the homos. But it's kind of like, for a mid-70s rock album, this is some very interesting material. And check out the lyrics to Shepherds of a Nation, the second track. You know, while you're watching along, pull up the lyrics of Shepherds of a Nation, because there's something else.
Down with sex and sin, down with pot, heroin, down with pornography, down with lust, down with vice, lechery, and debauchery, and debauchery. We are the new centurions, shepherds of the nation. We'll keep on our guard for sin and degradation. We are the National Guard against filth and depravity, perversion and vulgarity, homosexuality. Keep it clean, keep it clean, keep it clean, keep it clean, keep it clean. Down with nudity, breasts that are bare and pubic hair. We're here to cleanse humanity from the man in the raincoat's pale-faced glare. So sodomites beware, sodomites beware. We are the new centurions, shepherds of the nation. We'll keep on our guard for sin and degradation. We are the National Guard against filth and depravity, perversion and vulgarity, homosexuality. Keep it clean,
I visualize a day when people will be free from evils like perversion and pornography. We'll cast out Satan and we'll set the sinners free. So people of the nation unite.
Put all the pervs in jail. Bring back the birch and the cat of nine tails. Bring back corporal punishment. Bring back the stocks and the axeman's block. Let righteousness prevail. Let righteousness prevail.
Down with nudity and hardcore magazines. We'll bring religion back and keep our country clean. Keep it clean. We are the new centurions, shepherds of the nation. We'll keep on our guard for sin and degradation. We are the National Guard against filth and depravity, perversion and vulgarity, homosexuality. Keep it clean, keep it clean,
All right, so that was Shepherds of the Nation. Honestly, if I can get people to listen to Preservation Act 2, and if I've got people in the comments saying, I listened to Preservation Act 2 AA, and actually, you're right, it's not a bad album, I'm probably going to get loads of people saying, like, AA, you've jumped the shark here. Preservation Act 2 is... The critics are right. Everybody's right. It's the worst album ever. I disagree. I honestly think Preservation Act 2 is actually Ray Davies kind of pushing new ground as a rock artist. Like, nobody ever done this sort of stuff before. Yeah, one of the best reviews I saw of that on Rate My Music was, if Queen had released this album in 1975, it would be considered Queen's masterpiece. You know, Better Than Tommy is another one I saw. So, you know, but whatever Kinks in 1975, theatrical album, wasn't cool, dismissed, etc. So, anyway, let's... another concept album, the final one before they were dropped by RCA and then told never to make another one of those again, is Schoolboys in Disgrace. Now, this actually... I was actually open-jawed when I discovered this. As if making the two parts of Preservation Act, which everybody hated, wasn't enough. When Ray brought out Schoolboys in Disgrace, he claimed that it wasn't an autobiographical story about him and Dave in school, which it clearly is, by the way. He presented it to the public and presented it in interviews as a concept album about Mr. Mr. Flash from the Preservation Act story arc. Him in school. So we get to learn about the backstory of Mr. Flash in school. So apparently all the songs on the album are spoken by Mr. Flash. I don't believe it for a second, but it's almost like Ray Davies had his own fun in a way. Like he was trying to he's clearly just messing around with people. But for me, a great rocker, and it's campy, but it's fun. This stuff is fun. Is I'm in Disgrace, which is kind of the title track of Schoolboys in Disgrace. I love this song. I find myself humming it all the time. So take it away.
The first time that I saw you, you were the lady of my dreams. The very next time I had to make you mine, and I treated you like a queen. The third time that I saw you, you treated me with such distaste. Now I wish I'd never seen your face. I'm in disgrace. I'm in disgrace because I fell for your pretty face. I'm in disgrace. He's in disgrace. I'm in disgrace. He's in disgrace. You captured me in your embrace. There's no use blaming me and saying I was your ruination. 'Cause it was you, equally, who got us into the situation. It wasn't lust, it wasn't rape, it was just a mistake. I'm in disgrace. He's in disgrace. I'm in disgrace. He's in disgrace because I fell for your pretty face. I'm in disgrace. He's in disgrace. I'm in disgrace. He's in disgrace. You captured me in your embrace. What's your love, real or fake? Or was it lonely infatuation? Picture you in my place. I wish I'd acted with a little less taste. I'm in disgrace. I'm in disgrace because I fell for your pretty face. Oh, what a waste. He's in disgrace. I'm in disgrace. He's in disgrace. Now my name's dirt and I'm disgraced. I'm in disgrace.
All right, so That was I'm in Disgrace. Really catchy. Mark my words, folks. Ray Davies never fell off. He never fell off. He was always brilliant. Always. Even through this period, which is critically panned or whatever. I think he's great all the way through. It's just a media hit job, is what it is. Now, when he went to Arista, he was told that they basically can't keep on doing these rock operas. You have to just do normal rock. And so, what we get now is a series of albums where the Kinks make their sound a bit more mainstream, a bit more rocky. Then it goes into arena rock and hard rock and even metal in some places. And don't forget, they had it in them. Dave always had it in him to make a much harder edge rock sound. And we'll get to some of that stuff. But the first album they released for Arista was called Sleepwalker, where, to my ears, let me just say it, right? Sleepwalker is probably one of the most underrated albums ever released. It's brilliant. It's a brilliant album. Every track is good. The sound is wonderful. The Kinks have never sounded better than they sound on Sleepwalker. You know, they had the Conch Studios, and, you know, I honestly think that Ray is at the peak of his powers on this album. Like, loads of great tunes. I mean, I don't understand how, like, the title track, which I'm about to play in a second, wasn't a top 10 hit, or wasn't a number one. But as you'll hear, the sound is a lot more mainstream, and Sleepwalker is almost like it's almost like the Kinks doing like Fleetwood Mac or something. They sound a bit like Fleetwood Mac. You know, that album Rumours, I think that came out in 1977. It very much sounds like an album that it's kind of sleek and sheen, and it's got a kind of mainstream feel to it. But that doesn't mean the songs aren't good. And honestly, I have been, since discovering Sleepwalker on this kind of journey back through the Kinks that I've been doing recently, I've been listening to Sleepwalker over and over. It's a fucking brilliant song. I actually found a live recording of it, which I'm going to play. But seriously, Sleepwalker, one of the Kinks' best ever songs.
Julie's going to do some more for us a little later, but right now, this next group was part of the original British invasion of musical groups like the Beatles and the Dave Clark Five back in the early 60s. But unlike those other groups, these guys are still very much a force in rock music today. Here are the Kinks.
Fast asleep, I start to creep through the shadows of the moonlight. I'll walk my beat. Better close your window tight. I might come in for a fight. Oh yeah. When nighttime comes, I start to creep. I prowl around when you're fast asleep. I walk around on my tippy toes, and I get into places that nobody knows. I'm always around if you wanna meet. You can find me on almost every street. You always get me on the telephone. I'll even come to your home if you're ever alone. I'm a sleepwalker. I'm a night stalker. I'm a sleepwalker. I'm a night walker. I'm a sleepwalker. Night stalker. Sleepwalker. Night walker. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh I'm a sleepwalker.
Come on, killer riff, brilliant chorus. I'm a sleepwalker. Oh, I love it. I love it. Now, the Kinks actually, on this kind of US comeback run, they got onto a bit of a roll, and they had a number of pretty, like, they started writing hit singles again as well. I say hit, not like number one, but by the standards of like Preservation Act Part 2, this was mega money for the Kinks. And they have an album called Low Budget, came out in 1979. And the sound is a bit harder, bit more arena rock, a bit harder orientation to the sound than on Sleepwalker. Sleepwalker's like Fleetwood Mac. I would say Low Budget is getting towards like, I don't know, what are some of those arena, like, I hesitate to say a Kiss, but I don't know, like Alice Cooper or like, it's just a harder sound, okay? Aerosmith or something, I don't know, Aerosmith. But the songs are really strong, and the singles in particular are good. One of the reasons that Low Budget stands out, firstly, Ray claims it's a concept album. Ray claims that Low Budget is sung from the point of view of this kind of sleazy, aging rocker that has to go back on the road. He's kind of, traveling from... So it's kind of... He always wants to put a distance between himself and what he's writing. So he says it to character. But a lot of the songs on Low Budget, which was a pretty big hit in America as an album, are all about America's kind of perceived decline in the world. So it's kind of interesting because he's spending a lot more time in America. And as you heard in the interviews, he felt more respected in America. And, in the late 70s, America had been through some shit. Like, this was the third year of the Jimmy Carter administration. They'd had stagflation. Watergate was a kind of hit to their world standing. And there's a lot of songs on this album where... there's a song called Can You Catch Me Falling, which is all about him asking from the point of view of Captain America, who in the comics had become nomad at this time, which is really interesting. He's asking, we helped out Europe in the war. We helped out everybody with the Marshall Plan. Now America is absolutely fucked. Is anybody going to come and help us? Who's going to catch us? Who's going to help us now? Because we're buggered now. I don't know if the Iran hostage crisis has happened, but there was a general feeling in the late 70s that things were going to shit in America. And the whole album, there's a song about gasoline prices and inflation, and it's just the whole album is all about stuff like this. And I think the most interesting track, and also the killer single on the album, is called I Wish I Could Fly Like Superman, which is basically a song about how the American kind of regime or the American capitalist system basically wants everybody to be like a superhuman, and it's this demand that you have to be like a Superman induces anxiety and stress and depression, and it's very stressful just to get by in America in 1979. So I think this is a fantastic song, and some dude on YouTube has put together some visuals for it, so I'll play that version.
A cigarette and a cup of tea. I looked in the mirror, what did I see? A 9-stone weakling with knobbly knees. I did my knees bend, press ups, touch my toes. Had another sneeze and I blew my nose. I looked in the mirror at my pigeon chest. I had to put on my clothes because it made me depressed.
All right, so closing in now, and the next big single I want to play is from 1981's Give the People What They Want. And here, they really went for it with the hard rock sound. This is like the Kinks as AC/DC or something. Like, they really fucking went for it. And the track I picked out is Destroyer, right? Destroyer, which is basically the Kinks acknowledging their past. There's a reference to Lola in there. And there's this obvious moment where the chorus starts to quote, both in the lyrics and in the tune, all of the day and all of the night. Da-da, da-da, da-da-da-da-da. So they go right back to their roots, to their early 1964 incarnation. And honestly, I think Destroyer rocks. And this was a hit as well in America. And honestly, the quality of the late 70s, early 80s Kinks material, I'm actually not surprised that they were doing quite well on their American tours here. What surprises me is that they never made a comeback in Britain, or they weren't, British people weren't buying these records or weren't interested, because this is a kick. Like, Give the People What They Want is an absolutely kick-ass album from 1981. It's not dated. It doesn't sound bad. It sounds, to my ears, it sounds fresh. And honestly, it's kind of, I like the playful way that they're acknowledging their past here. It doesn't come across as like self-parody or self-indulgence, or there's a when artists get into a late career, that's always a danger. We talked about that on the Francis Bacon streams, but I honestly think Destroyer is a great song, and I think the Give the People What They Want is a great album as well, which makes it 3 great albums in a row, like Sleepwalker, Low Budget, and this is great. I also forgot about Misfits. I like the Misfits a little bit less than the other ones, but Misfits has got some good songs as well. Anyway, let's take it away. Destroyer.
Met a girl called Lola and I took her back to my place. Feeling guilty, feeling scared, hidden cameras everywhere. Stop! Hold on. Stay in control. Girl, I want you here with me, but I'm really not as cool as I'd like to be. 'Cause there's a rat under my bed, and there's a little yellow man in my head, and there's a true blue inside of me that keeps stopping me, touching you, wanting you, loving you. Paranoia, the destroyer. Paranoia, the destroyer. Well, I fell asleep, then I woke feeling kinda queer. Lola looked at me and said, ooh, you look so weird. She said, man, there's really something wrong with you. One day you're gonna self-destruct. You're up, you're down, I can't work you out. You get a good thing going, then you blow yourself out. Sitting by you, self-destroyer. Sitting by you, self-destroyer. Sitting by you, got so much to live for, so much to aim for, so much to try for. You're blowing all with paranoia. You're so insecure, you self-destroyer. And it goes like this, here it goes. Paranoia, the destroyer. Here it goes again. Paranoia, the destroyer. Doctor, doctor, help me please, I know you'll understand. There's a time device inside of me, I'm a self-destructive man. There's a rat under my bed, and there's a little green man in my head. And said you're not going crazy, you're just a bit sad. 'Cause there's a man in you, gnawing you, tearing you into two. Sitting by yourself, destroyer. Paranoia, the destroyer. Self-destroyer, wreck your hell, destroy your friends, destroy yourself. The time device of self-destruction, lies accuser, start erupting.
All right, so let's carry on, because the next song was a big hit, and this was actually a hit in Britain as well as in America. Flopped initially on release, but then when it did well in America, they re-released it in the UK and actually gave it some promotion for a change. And lo and behold, it was a top 10 hit here as well. And that was Come Dancing, which is from their 1983 album State of Confusion, another strong album, it has to be said. And this one is interesting because it's about... do you remember I mentioned he had a sister who died when he was young? It's about her and the way she used to go to the dance halls, the local pally, as he calls it. And they made a video to this. It's all very evocative. One of the really interesting things about this song, not only is this the Kinks kind of, in a way, recapturing... I read in one interview that he wanted to recapture some of the warmth of the late 60s material, like the Village Green stuff. He wanted to kind of capture the dance halls that all his sisters used to go to. And he said it's not just about his sister, but all the girls who went to these dance halls, in the 50s. One thing I find remarkable is that this song, so English and so evocative, not just of England, but of England of a specific period in the 50s that had been lost, was a hit in America. I honestly, what is the dude who's picking up this record in Ohio thinking when he's listening to this, or the dude in Virginia? I have no idea what they thought they were listening to, but it's really quite remarkable that this song, of all their late material, was the standout hit. So this is Come Dancing.
Parking lot on a piece of land where the supermarket used to stand. Before that they put up a bowling alley on the site that used to be the local pally. That's where the big bands used to come and play. My sister went there on a Saturday. Come dancing, all her boyfriends used to come and call. Why not come dancing? It's only natural. Another Saturday, another date. She would be ready, but she'd always make him wait in the hallway in anticipation. He didn't know the night would end up in frustration. He'd end up blowing all his wages for the week, or for a cuddle and a peck on the cheek. Come dancing, that's how they did it when I was just a kid. And when they said come dancing, my sister always did. Sister should have come in at midnight, and my mom would always sit up and wait. It always ended up in a big row when my sister used to get home late. Out of my window I could see them in the moonlight, two silhouettes saying goodnight by the garden gate. The day they knocked down the pally, my sister stood and cried. The day they knocked down the pally, while my childhood died, just died. Now I'm grown up and playing in a band, and there's a car park where the pally used to stand. My sister's married and she lives on an estate. Her daughters go out, now it's her turn to wait. She knows they get away with things she never could. But if I asked her, I wonder if she would come dancing. Come on, sister, have yourself a ball. Don't be afraid to come dancing. It's only natural. Come dancing, just like the party on a Saturday. And all your friends would come dancing while the big band used to play.
All right, so not far from the end now. The penultimate track I'm going to play was from their 1984 album, Word of Mouth. The track is called Do It Again. Do It Again. Now, for my taste, this one is a little bit more cheesy. It's got a bit of that 80s sheen about it. This is like almost the sort of song Patrick Bateman would listen to. But it's really quite catchy. And I went out with AAA recently. We went to a place called Paulsden Lacey, which is this kind of country manor. And we met some friends there, and she was on one of these little balance bikes. And she was kind of going up and down these kind of this old garden that they've got in the stately home there, up and down. And she was singing something to herself. And I was like, what's she singing there? And she was literally going up and down. She was going, do it again, do it again, do it again, do it again. Because I've been playing the Kinks in the car. Because that's where I do a lot of the listening to music in the car. And she was singing Do It Again. And she basically had Do It Again stuck in her head. And I was like, oh, this must be a pretty strong tune that even a 3-year-old is picking up on how catchy it is. So, yeah, I mean, you know, here we are, Kinks in the mid-80s. And honestly, I don't think they lost it. I think it's a great song. Yet another great single by Ray Davies here.
Standing in the middle of nowhere, wondering how to begin. Lost between tomorrow and yesterday, between now and then. And now we're back where we started. Here we go round again. Day after day I get up and I say I better do it again. Where are all the people going round and round till we reach the end? One day leaving
Come aboard the ghost train and meet my friend Headless Harry. Isn't he lovely? Take a little ride to hell and back. On this ghost train you might never come back. Come and meet the ghosties. I'm waiting to welcome you.
All right, and the final song to play us out, I'll just remind people, do buy my book, Prophets of Doom, buy my courses, promo code MATE with 3 A's. But the last song I'm going to touch on here is Hatred from the very last album, Phobia. Now, Phobia is an absolutely mental album for many reasons. One of the reasons is that it's basically a hair metal album, but a hair metal album released in bloody 1993. They kind of released like a kind of big hair, early 80s metal album in 1993. It really is mental. And what's interesting is that Hatred is ostensibly a song about the mutual animosity between Ray and Dave. So they thought that they would actually make a song out of their hatred for each other. But what's interesting to me is that the song works on another level. So the hatred that Ray and Dave have for each other also works as a metaphor for all of the people on the world. And when I read some of the lyrics, you'll see what I mean, right? These are some of the lyrics. Driven by hate, driven by hate, driven by hate, driven by hate. On the surface, I'm a mild-mannered person until you scratch the animal inside. Then you bring out all my animal aggression. I got hatred for you that's never going to die. Hatred, hatred is the only thing that lasts forever. Hatred, hatred, it's the only thing that keeps us together. While races try to integrate, nations try to gravitate towards equal rights, regardless of religion, politicians must decree, for the sake of humanity, love and peace instead of collision. You and me accept reality. There's no way that we can agree. The world can't make us alter this position. At least you and I know where we stand. We can't be friends, walk hand in hand. My hostility for you defies description. Hatred, hatred is the only thing that keeps us together. Hatred, hatred is the only thing that lasts forever. And what is so interesting about that, to me, is the fact that, yes, it works as a song about Ray and Dave and their relationship. But also hidden in that, the fact he's talking about racial equality again for the first time since Black Messiah, that he's talking about politicians and so on, and accepting reality, right? I mean, listen to the lyrics. If you keep on putting me down, rub my name into the ground, I'll drag and dirt all over the town about you. And if you spread the filth on me, I've only got one remedy. I'll spill the beans. I've got a mouth too. So, there you go. Yes, it could just be about Ray and Dave, but I like to think there's a hidden message in there. Let's take it away.
My next guest came out of North London 29 years ago at the forefront of the British music invasion. Since then, they've created some of the most influential music in modern rock. I saw them again at the Boston Tea Party. This is their newest CD called Phobia, performing a little song called Hatred, joined by our very own Kenny Kirkland, Bob Hurst, and Jeff Kane Watts. Please welcome the Kinks.
You scratch the animal inside. Then you bring out all my animal aggression. I got a hatred for you that is never gonna die. Driven to hate, driven to hate, driven to hate, driven to hate. Hatred, hatred is the only thing that keeps us together. Hatred, hatred is the only thing that lasts forever. While races try to integrate, nations try to gravitate towards equal rights regardless of religion. Politicians might decree for the sake of all humanity, love and peace instead of a collision. You and me accept reality, there's no way that we can't agree. The world can't make us all in this position. At least you and I know where we stand. We can't be friends, walk hand by hand, might be facility for you to find the scripture. Hate's the only thing we have in common. There's no escape, it'll always be this way. So we might as well just learn to stick together, because we're gonna be this way till I die and dead. Woo! Driven to hate, driven to hate, driven to hate. Hatred, hatred is the only thing that keeps us together. Hatred, hatred is the only thing that lasts forever. Yeah, hatred. Your attitude is downright rude. Your jokes appall me, they're so crude. Why don't you just drop that and don't recover? You're the mirror to my moods. You hate me and I hate you, so at least we understand each other. Hey. Hatred, hatred is the only thing that lasts.